My wife's sister laughed. I put peanuts in your dinner to prove you're faking your allergy. You're just picky. As my throat swelled up, I texted, call 911. Then I handed the EMTs the food sample and filed a police report for assault with a deadly weapon. When the officers arrested her in the ER waiting room, the dining room was warm, too warm. Jennifer had insisted on lighting candles, 6 of them, arranged in a constellation across the mahogany table my mother-in-law had given us as a wedding gift. The flames danced in their glass holders, casting shadows that climbed the walls like vines seeking sunlight. Outside, October rain drummed against the windows in sheets, the kind of downpour that turns suburban streets into rivers and makes you grateful for solid roofs and central heating. More wine? My sister-in-law's voice cut through the ambient noise of silverware against porcelain. Claire held the bottle of Pinot Noir like a weapon, her smile fixed in that particular way wealthy women perfect over country club luncheons and charity galas. It was the smile that said, I'm being gracious, but her eyes always told a different story. I'm good, thanks. I adjusted my napkin, smoothing it across my lap for the 3rd time. My throat felt tight already, though I'd barely eaten anything. Anxiety did that sometimes, made my body betray me before there was even a real threat. Jennifer touched my hand, her fingers cool against my skin. You okay, babe? You seem tense. I'm fine. The lie came easily. We'd been married for 3 years, together for 5, and I'd learned which truths to share and which to pocket like loose change. Tonight wasn't the night to tell her that her sister made my skin crawl, that every dinner invitation felt like walking into an exam I hadn't studied for. Claire leaned back in her chair, the leather creaking beneath her weight. She was wearing that cream-colored sweater, cashmere probably because everything Claire owned whispered expensive without screaming it. Her jewelry caught the candlelight, diamond studs, a tennis bracelet, a wedding ring so large it looked like it might topple her forward. So, she began, and I felt my stomach clench. That word, that tone, it was never followed by anything good. Jennifer tells me you're still being particular about your food. The way she said particular, like it was a character flaw. Like I'd chosen to be this way the same way someone might choose to be vegan or gluten-free for the aesthetic. It's not being particular, Jennifer said, an edge creeping into her voice. He has a peanut allergy. I've explained this. Claire waved her hand dismissively, her bracelet catching light and throwing tiny rainbows across the ceiling. Oh, I know what you've said. I just think it's interesting how these allergies seem to be everywhere now. When we were kids, nobody had allergies. We ate peanut butter sandwiches every day, and we survived just fine. I wanted to tell her that survivorship bias wasn't the argument she thought it was, that the kids who didn't survive peanut butter sandwiches weren't around to contradict her nostalgia. But I bit my tongue literally until I tasted copper. Some of us didn't survive fine, I said quietly. My cousin died when we were 7, anaphylaxis at a birthday party. Someone gave him a cookie with peanut butter chips. The room went silent except for the rain. Even the candles seemed to still their dancing. Jennifer's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard. Claire's expression didn't change. That's tragic, of course, but don't you think some people exaggerate? Use these allergies as an excuse to be difficult? To control social situations? Claire, Jennifer's voice was sharp now, the way it got when someone at her law firm questioned her judgment. That's enough. I'm just saying. Claire reached for her wine, taking a long sip. It's always something with some people. Can't eat this, can't be around that. It's exhausting, keeping track of everyone's special requirements. I should have left then, should have made an excuse, claimed a headache, said I had early meetings. Any of the socially acceptable exits would have worked. But Jennifer had been so excited about this dinner, about trying to bridge the gap between me and her family. Her parents were traveling through Europe, a retirement cruise that had stretched into a 6-month odyssey of wine tastings and museum tours. Claire and her husband, David, were the only family nearby. Jennifer wanted this to work. She wanted us all to be close. So I stayed. The chicken looks amazing, I offered, trying to redirect. What's the glaze? Claire brightened, her irritation dissolving like sugar in hot water. Oh, it's a recipe I got from this darling chef at the country club. Honey and soy sauce. with a touch of garlic and ginger. I made sure there are absolutely no nuts involved. She said this last part with exaggerated care, like a teacher speaking to a particularly slow student. I appreciate that. And I did, or at least I wanted to. Jennifer squeezed my hand again, grateful. David, Claire's husband, had been quiet throughout this exchange, focused on his plate with the intensity of someone trying to disappear through sheer force of will. He was a tax attorney, successful in the way that money measures success, but diminished somehow in his wife's shadow. When he did speak, it was usually to agree with whatever Claire had just said. Claire worked on this menu all week, he offered now, a peace offering to the table. She wanted everything to be perfect. It is perfect, Jennifer said firmly. Isn't it, Marcus? Everyone was looking at me. The candlelight made their faces look strange, angular. I felt like I was in a painting, something Renaissance and vaguely unsettling. It's great, I said, really. We ate in relative silence for a while, the tension dissipating into the comfortable sounds of dinner. Forks scraping plates, wine being poured, the occasional comment about the weather or Jennifer's latest case. She was defending a nonprofit in a discrimination lawsuit, work that kept her at the office until midnight most nights. I was proud of her, even if it meant dinners like this, eaten without her beside me, replaced by takeout in the blue glow of my laptop. I took another bite of chicken. It was good. Claire, whatever her faults, knew how to cook. The glaze was perfectly balanced, sweet and savory, with that umami depth that makes you want to keep eating even when you're full. The vegetables were roasted to caramelize perfection. The rice was fluffy, each grain distinct. I reached for my water, my throat suddenly dry. So Marcus, Claire said, setting down her fork with precision, Jennifer mentioned you got passed over for that promotion again? The water stuck in my throat. I coughed, reaching for my napkin. Jennifer's face went pale, then red. Claire, that was private. I'm just concerned. Claire's voice was all innocence now, wounded surprise. He's been at that company for how long? 6 years? And they keep promoting people who've been there half as long. Don't you think that's strange? The company is restructuring, I said, my voice leveled despite the anger building in my chest like steam in a pressure cooker. It's not personal. Isn't it, though? Claire tilted her head, studying me like I was a particularly interesting specimen under glass. I mean, if you're constantly accommodating these needs, it makes you look weak, unreliable. Employers notice these things. My throat was getting tighter. I took another sip of water, then another. Something wasn't right. The warmth of the room had become heat, oppressive and cloying. I tugged at my collar, suddenly aware of how constricting my shirt felt. Are you okay? Jennifer was standing now, her chair scraping backward. Marcus? I tried to answer, but my voice came out wrong, strangled, whistling. My hands went to my throat instinctively, fingers pressing against the skin that felt swollen, foreign. Oh my God. Jennifer's phone was already in her hand. I'm calling 911. Wait. Claire's voice stopped her. There was something in it, something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up despite the heat flooding my body. Just wait a second. I looked at her, and she was smiling. Not the country club smile, not the polite hostess smile. Something else entirely. Something satisfied. I may have put a little something extra in your chicken, she said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. Peanut butter, just a tiny amount, mixed into the glaze. I wanted to see if you were really allergic or just, being dramatic. The room tilted. Or maybe I tilted. Jennifer's voice was very far away now, shouting something, and David was standing, his chair crashing to the floor. But all I could focus on was Claire, still seated, still smiling, watching me struggle to breathe like I was a science experiment confirming her hypothesis. My phone, where was my phone? My hands were clumsy, swollen as I patted my pockets. There, left pocket. I pulled it out, fingers barely responding to my brain's commands. The screen was too bright, the letters swimming. I managed to open my messages to find Jennifer's name. My vision was tunneling, darkness creeping in from the edges. I typed, each letter a monumental effort. call 911. Then, because some part of my brain was still working, still planning ahead through the panic and the closing throat and the racing heart, I did something else. I took a picture of my plate. The chicken, glistening with its poison glaze. The rice, the vegetables, all contaminated. Evidence. I managed one more text, this one to my own email. Plate. Claire admitted poisoning. Peanut butter and glaze. Witnesses. Jennifer David. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. The room was spinning now, a carousel of candlelight and concerned faces. I heard sirens. Already? Or was that my imagination, my oxygen-starved brain creating the sounds I desperately needed to hear? Hands guided me to the floor. Jennifer's voice, close to my ear. They're coming, baby. They're coming. Stay with me. Stay with me. I fumbled with my jacket. I'd hung it on my chair, too warm for the overheated room. My fingers found the pocket, found the familiar cylinder. My EpiPen. I always carried two, but tonight I'd only brought one. Jennifer helped me, her hands steadier than mine, and I felt the needle punch through my jeans into my thigh. The auto-injector hissed, delivering its payload of epinephrine. The drug hit like a lightning strike. My heart, already racing, began to hammer against my ribs like it was trying to escape. My hands trembled violently. But my throat began to open. Just a little. Just enough to pull in a thin stream of air. It wouldn't be enough. One dose was rarely enough for a significant exposure, and I could feel my body still reacting, still swelling, the allergy cascade continuing despite the chemical intervention. The sirens were real now, close and getting closer. Red and blue lights painted the windows, the walls, turning our dinner party into something from a crime scene, which I realized through the haze it was. Claire had stopped smiling. She was standing now, backing away from the table, from me. I just wanted to prove you're overreacting. Jennifer rounded on her with a fury I'd never seen before. You tried to kill him. You tried to kill my husband. Don't be ridiculous. It was just a little peanut butter. If he's really that sensitive, that's what anaphylaxis means, Jennifer was screaming now, all lawyer composure abandoned. You knew, I told you, I explained. You knew. The front door burst open, EMTs in dark blue uniforms carrying bags and equipment, professional and efficient. They took over with the calm authority of people who'd done this 1,000 times. Anaphylaxis, I managed to whisper. Peanut exposure. How long ago did you use the EpiPen? 2 minutes, maybe 3. They had me on a gurney in seconds, an oxygen mask over my face, an IV line going into my arm. The oxygen helped, cool and clean, pushing back the feeling of drowning in air. One of them, a woman with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun, held up my phone. Is this yours? I nodded. You took photos? Another nod. She looked at them, her expression hardening. Good, that's good. We're taking you to County General. Your wife can ride with us. As they wheeled me toward the door, I managed to catch the gurney rail, stopping them for just a moment. The female EMT leaned down, understanding. The food, I rasped behind the oxygen mask, on the table. It's evidence. Need a sample. She looked at her partner, a younger man with a beard and tattoos visible beneath his uniform sleeves. He got it immediately, disappearing back into the dining room. He returned moments later with a plastic evidence bag, where had he gotten that, containing my plate, carefully sealed. We got it, he said, smart thinking. As we moved toward the ambulance, I saw Claire through the open door, standing in her pristine dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of her perfect dinner. David was on his phone, probably calling their lawyer. Jennifer was following the gurney, her face streaked with tears and rage. And somewhere in the distance, beneath the sirens and the rain and the chaos, I heard more sirens. Different ones. Police. The ambulance doors closed, sealing me into a world of medical equipment and urgent competence. The female EMT adjusted my oxygen, checked my vitals, prepared a second dose of epinephrine. You're going to be okay, she said, but her eyes were serious. But this was close, another few minutes. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Through the small window in the ambulance door, I watched Claire's house recede, the lights in the rain and the police cars arriving. Officers in dark uniforms stepping out into the storm. Jennifer held my hand, her grip tight enough to hurt, but I welcomed the pain. It meant I was alive, still here, still breathing. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so, so sorry." I squeezed her hand back, unable to speak through the oxygen mask, but trying to communicate what I needed her to know. "This isn't your fault. You couldn't have known." How could anyone have known? But even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. The signs had been there: Claire's dismissiveness, her contempt, her absolute certainty that my allergy was performance rather than physiology. I'd seen them. Jennifer had seen them. We'd just chosen to believe that no one, not even Claire at her most insufferable, would actually weaponize that dismissal. We'd been wrong. The ambulance soared as it turned corners too fast, the siren wailing above us like a grief we hadn't processed yet. My heartbeat was visible on the monitor, racing from the epinephrine, the numbers too high but necessary. Each breath was a small victory, hard won. I closed my eyes just for a moment and saw Claire's smile again. That satisfied expression as she watched me choke, as she admitted what she'd done, casual as commenting on the weather. "I wanted to prove you were faking." My eyes opened. Through the oxygen mask, past the drugs flooding my system, beyond the fear and the anger and the lingering panic, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. This wasn't over. This was only the beginning. The fluorescent lights of County General's emergency room were the color of institutional despair, that particular shade of white-blue that makes everyone look like they're dying, even the people who are just there for sprained ankles or bad cuts. I stared up at them from my gurney, parked against a wall in a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and fear, trying to focus on anything other than the continued tightness in my chest, the wheeze still present in each breath despite the oxygen. "BP is 168 over 90, a nurse called out, checking the automatic cuff around my arm. She was older, maybe 50, with the efficient movements of someone who'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed by any of it anymore. "Heart rate 142. Still elevated from the epi, the EMT, her name tag said Rodriguez, explained. She'd stayed with me through intake, making sure her report got heard by the right people. But his O2 sat is holding at 94%, improvement from the 88 we had in the ambulance." A doctor appeared, young and harried, his white coat stained with something that might have been coffee or might have been blood. It was that kind of night, apparently. "Marcus Chen, that's me." My voice was stronger now, less whistle, more human. "Progress." He flipped through the tablet in his hands, reading Rodriguez's notes. His eyes widened slightly, the only indication that this was anything other than routine. "So you're saying someone deliberately gave you peanuts, knowing you had an allergy?" "My sister-in-law." Even saying it out loud felt surreal, like I was narrating someone else's life. She admitted it. Said she wanted to prove I was faking. The doctor looked up from his tablet, meeting my eyes for the first time. Something shifted in his expression, professional distance giving way to something more human. Anger, maybe, or recognition. Jesus. "There are witnesses," I continued, each word carefully measured, because talking still required effort. "My wife, her husband. The EMTs have a sample of the food, and I have it on." I gestured weakly toward where Jennifer stood, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline. "I have text, photos, timeline." "He documented everything," Rodriguez added, pride evident in her voice. Even mid-anaphylaxis, he was thinking ahead. "I've been doing this for 15 years, never seen anything like it." The doctor nodded slowly, processing. Okay. First things first, we need to make sure you're stable. You've had one EpiPen at the scene, and we gave you a second in the ambulance. I'm ordering IV diphenhydramine, methylprednisolone, and ranitidine. We'll monitor you for at least 6 hours for biphasic reaction." I knew what that meant. Sometimes after the initial treatment, the symptoms came back hours later. A second wave that could be just as dangerous as the first. Sometimes more dangerous, because people thought they were safe. And then, Jennifer's voice was hoarse from crying, from screaming, from the sheer emotional whiplash of the last hour. "What happens then?" Then we make sure he stays stable and we keep him overnight for observation. The doctor looked between us, understanding that the medical question wasn't really what she was asking. But I'm also legally required to report this. Deliberate poisoning is assault. There are already police officers in the waiting room. They came with the ambulance. My chest tightened again, but this time it wasn't the allergy, it was something else, the weight of what was about to happen, the machinery of consequences about to grind into motion. Good, I said, and meant it. They moved me to a treatment room, an actual room this time, with walls and a door, not just a curtain pretending to offer privacy. The nurse, her name tag read Patricia, was gentle as she started the IV, apologizing when she had to stick me twice to find a vein. The medications went in cold, a sensation like winter flooding through my arm and into my chest. This will make you drowsy, she warned. The Benadryl especially. Don't fight it. But fighting it was exactly what I wanted to do. My mind was racing faster than my chemically accelerated heart, replaying the dinner, analyzing every moment. How long had Claire been planning this? Had it been a spontaneous decision, a sudden impulse to test me? Or had she been thinking about it for days, weeks, researching how much peanut butter would be enough to cause a reaction, but not what? Not enough to kill me? Except it had been enough. Without the EpiPen, without the ambulance arriving in time, without the second dose of epinephrine, I would have died on her dining room floor, surrounded by her expensive furniture and her perfect candles. The thought should have terrified me, should have sent me into panic, into trauma response. But instead I felt something cold and clear settling over me like fresh snow. Clarity, purpose. Mr. Chen? A different voice now. I opened my eyes, when had I closed them, to see two police officers standing in the doorway. One was a woman in her 40s, black, with her hair pulled back severely and sergeant stripes on her sleeve. The other was younger, maybe 30, white, with the kind of face that probably still got carded at bars. I'm Sergeant Williams, the woman said, stepping into the room. This is Officer Brennan. The EMTs briefed us on what happened tonight. We need to get your statement. Jennifer started to speak, but I held up a hand. I can do it. I needed to do it, needed to say it all while it was fresh, while the fury was still hot enough to burn through the drowsiness trying to pull me under. Sergeant Williams pulled out a small recorder, old school, the kind with actual tapes. You mind if I record this? Please do. She clicked it on, stated the date, time, location, and the people present. Then she looked at me, her expression professionally neutral, but her eyes sharp. This wasn't her first assault case, probably not even her first poisoning case. But I could see her interest, her attention. This was different somehow. Tell me what happened tonight. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told them about the dinner invitation, about Claire's history of dismissing my allergy, about the loaded comments throughout the meal. I described the taste of the chicken, the sudden onset of symptoms, the moment when Claire admitted, bragged really, about what she'd done. She said, and I quote, I may have put a little something extra in your chicken, peanut butter, just a tiny amount, mixed into the glaze. I wanted to see if you were really allergic or just being dramatic. The words tasted bitter in my mouth, chemical tinged from the medications. She said this while I was actively going into anaphylactic shock, while I was suffocating. Officer Brennan was taking notes, his pen moving rapidly across a small notebook. He paused, looking up. And there were witnesses to this statement? My wife, Jennifer. I gestured to where she stood, rigid with tension. And Claire's husband, David. He was there for the whole thing. David won't contradict her, Jennifer said bitterly. He never does. But I will. I'll testify to everything. She admitted it. She smiled while she said it. She was proud. Sergeant Williams nodded, her expression darkening. The EMTs also collected the plate as evidence. That was smart thinking, Mr. Chen. Having physical evidence makes this case much stronger. I used to work in risk management, I said, the words coming out slightly slurred now as the Benadryl took hold. Documentation is survival. Indeed. She clicked off the recorder but didn't put it away. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to go to the hospital waiting room where your sister-in-law is currently waiting. We're going to arrest her for assault with a deadly weapon, possibly attempted murder, depending on what the DA decides. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Attempted murder. Those were real words with real weight, not something from a Netflix crime drama. Not something that happened to people like me, people who went to work and paid their taxes and tried to maintain polite relationships with difficult in-laws. Will she go to jail? Jennifer asked, her voice small. Tonight, I mean. Will they keep her? That's up to the judge at her arraignment, Sergeant Williams said. But given the severity, deliberately poisoning someone with a known life-threatening allergy, I'd be surprised if she gets bail immediately. At minimum, they'll hold her overnight. I thought about Claire in a cell, still wearing her cashmere sweater and her tennis bracelet, surrounded by concrete and steel instead of her carefully curated aesthetic. The image should have given me satisfaction. It did give me satisfaction. But it was complicated satisfaction, tangled up with the knowledge that this would tear Jennifer's family apart, that holidays would never be the same, that I was about to become the villain in someone else's story, except I wasn't the villain. I had to keep reminding myself of that. I wasn't the one who had weaponized dinner. I wasn't the one who had turned a family gathering into attempted homicide. Do you need anything else from me right now? I asked, my eyelids growing heavier with each blink. Not at this moment. Get some rest. We'll need a more detailed statement tomorrow, once you're feeling better. And we'll probably need you to come to the station to sign some paperwork. Sergeant Williams pocketed her recorder, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, Mr. Chen, you did everything right. The documentation, the evidence preservation, the quick action. You potentially saved your own life. Not everyone thinks that clearly in a crisis. They left, taking with them the official weight of law enforcement, leaving behind only the beeping monitors and the steady drip of my IV, and Jennifer, collapsing into the chair beside my bed like someone had cut her strings. I can't believe this is happening, she whispered. My sister tried to kill you. Maybe she didn't mean to kill me, I offered, trying to find some thread of reason, of explanation. Maybe she really did just want to prove a point. Maybe she didn't understand how severe— Stop! Jennifer's voice was sharp, cutting through my drowsy attempts at rationalization. Stop making excuses for her. She knew. I've told her 100 times. I've explained anaphylaxis. I've described what happened to your cousin. She knew, Marcus. She just didn't care. Or worse, she didn't believe it mattered. Didn't believe you mattered. The truth of that settled over me like a weighted blanket. Claire hadn't attempted murder out of hatred, out of passion, out of any of the traditional motivations. She'd done it out of something worse, the absolute conviction that her perception of reality was more valid than my lived experience, that her certainty, born from privilege and ignorance, outweighed my medical history, my doctor's warnings, my literal survival instinct. She'd tried to kill me to prove a point, to win an argument, to be right. What do we do now? I asked, not really expecting an answer. After tonight, after everything, what does this look like? Jennifer took my hand, her fingers cold despite the overheated room. I don't know. I need to call our parents. They're in Barcelona right now. Shit. What time is it there? Middle of the night, early morning? She fumbled for her phone, then stopped. I can't tell them over the phone. How do I tell my parents that their daughter tried to murder their son-in-law? How do I— She broke off, tears finally coming. Not the angry tears from earlier, but something deeper. Grief. For the family that had existed before tonight, for the sister she thought she'd known, for the innocence of believing that blood meant safety. I wanted to comfort her, but the medications were pulling me under like a riptide. My words came out thick and slow. Not your fault. None of this. Your fault. I should have known. Should have seen? No. I forced my eyes to stay open, forced the words to clarity. Some people hide their cruelty until they think they can get away with it. She hid it, saved it up for when she thought there wouldn't be consequences. A knock at the door interrupted us. Patricia poked her head in. Sorry to disturb, but there's quite a situation in the waiting room. The police are arresting someone, and they're making a scene. Security's been called. I thought you should know. Jennifer stood, her expression hardening from grief into something more primal. I want to see it. I need to see them arrest her. Jennifer, I tried to sit up, failed, the medications and exhaustion combining to pin me to the bed. I need to see it, she repeated, her voice steel. I need to watch them put handcuffs on my sister. I need that image in my head to replace the one of her smiling while you choked. Do you understand? I did. God help me, I did. Be careful was all I could manage. She kissed my forehead, fierce and quick, then followed Patricia out of the room. The door swung shut behind them, leaving me alone with the beeping monitors and the sterile walls in my thoughts. I should have felt victorious. Should have felt vindicated. I'd been right, my allergy was real, and now everyone would know it. Claire would face consequences. Justice would be served. But all I felt was tired, bone deep, soul tired, the kind of exhaustion that comes from having your fundamental assumption challenged, the assumption that people, even difficult people, even people you don't particularly like, will stop short of actually trying to kill you. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. I reached for it with my non-IV arm, squinting at the screen. A text from an unknown number. This is David. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what she was planning. I swear to God I didn't know. She told me she was making regular chicken. Please believe me. I stared at the message for a long moment. Did I believe him? Did it matter? He'd been there. He'd watched it happen. He'd done nothing until it was almost too late. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed, "You should have stopped her." The response came immediately. I know, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything, whatever you need, good. Because I'm pressing charges, full extent of the law. A longer pause this time, then, I understand, I would too. I set the phone down, my arm trembling from even that small effort. Through the closed door, I heard raised voices. Claire's high and indignant, insisting this was a misunderstanding, that she was being persecuted, that I was clearly fine, so what was the problem? The problem, I thought, my eyes finally closing, despite my best efforts to stay alert, was that she'd tried to kill me. The problem was that being fine now didn't erase the 5 minutes when I wasn't fine, when my throat was closing and my vision was darkening, and I was texting what might have been my last words to my wife. The problem was that she'd done it at a dinner table, in her home, surrounded by family, with premeditation and malice, and the absolute certainty that she'd get away with it because people like her always did. But not this time. This time there would be evidence, witnesses, medical records, police reports. This time the machinery of justice would grind forward, slow but inexorable, and Claire would learn what the rest of us already knew. Actions have consequences, even for people who've never faced them before. Especially for people who've never faced them before. The voices in the hallway faded, and the medications pulled me deeper. My last conscious thought was of Jennifer, standing somewhere in this hospital, watching her sister get arrested, holding herself together through sheer force of will, the way she always did. My wife, my fierce and brilliant wife, who'd chosen me over blood, who'd stood beside me even when it meant standing against her own family. Tomorrow I would give my detailed statement. Tomorrow I would sign paperwork and talk to lawyers and begin the long, ugly process of prosecution. Tomorrow I would deal with the fallout, the family members who would take Claire's side, who would say I was overreacting, who would suggest I should drop the charges for the sake of family unity. Tomorrow. But tonight I let the darkness take me, secure in the knowledge that every breath I took was documented, witnessed, evidence of both my survival and Claire's crime. Tonight I would rest, heal, prepare, because this wasn't over. This was only the beginning. Morning came through institutional blinds and slices, light cutting across the hospital room like accusations. I woke in stages, first awareness of pain, a dull ache in my throat like I'd swallowed ground glass, then memory, rushing back in a flood that made my heart rate spike enough to set off the monitor alarm. Then reality, crystallizing into the understanding that last night had actually happened and there was no waking up from this particular nightmare. A nurse appeared, different from Patricia, younger, with kind eyes and purple scrubs decorated with cartoon cats. "Good morning, Mr. Chen. I'm Amanda. How are you feeling?" How was I feeling? Like someone had tried to murder me at a dinner party. Like my throat had been used as a scratching post. Like my entire worldview had shifted 3 degrees to the left, and now nothing lined up quite right. "Sore," I said instead. "Tired. Thirsty. All normal after anaphylaxis and the medications we gave you." She checked my vitals, making notes on her tablet. "Your oxygen saturation is good, 98%. Blood pressure day is back to normal range. Heart rate is still a little elevated, but nothing concerning." She looked up, meeting my eyes. "The doctor will be in shortly to evaluate you. If everything looks good, you might be able to go home this afternoon." Home, the word felt strange. Where was home now? Not Claire's dining room, certainly, but even our own house felt contaminated somehow, by proximity, by association. Every future family gathering would be shadowed by this. Every meal would carry the memory of poisoned chicken and satisfied smiles. "Where's my wife?" My voice came out rougher than expected, gravelly with disuse and trauma. "She's in the waiting room. She stayed all night, actually. Tried to sleep in the chair in here until we made her leave around 3. Hospital policy, only one overnight guest, and you were stable enough that we needed the space." Amanda busied herself adjusting my IV, not meeting my eyes. "She asked us to wake her as soon as you were up. I'll go get her." "Wait." I stopped her with a gesture. "What happened last night? After the arrest?" Amanda's expression shifted, uncomfortable now. Nurses weren't supposed to gossip, weren't supposed to share details about other patients or incidents, but something in her face told me she wanted to, needed to, the same way everyone needs to talk about the shocking thing they witnessed. "I wasn't here for it," she said carefully, "but I heard from the night shift that there was quite a scene. The woman who was arrested, your sister-in-law, she had to be physically restrained. She was screaming about false accusations, about how you were faking, about how she'd done nothing wrong." Amanda paused, choosing her words. "Security had to help get her out of the building, and her husband was crying, just standing there in the waiting room, crying." David. I felt an unexpected pang of something that might have been sympathy. He was collateral damage in this, married to a woman who'd finally revealed herself fully. What did you do when you realized your wife was capable of attempted murder? When the person you slept beside, made breakfast with, planned futures with, turned out to have this capacity for casual cruelty? "Thank you," I said, "for telling me." Amanda nodded, relieved, and left to get Jennifer. I lay there in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles and trying to organize my thoughts into something coherent. Last night, drugged and exhausted, the path forward had seemed clear. Press charges, seek justice, let the system work. But in daylight, the reality was more complicated. Claire would hire a lawyer, a good one. She and David had money, the kind that came from family inheritances and successful careers in smart investments. The lawyer would argue that Arshisi hadn't meant to cause serious harm, that it was a lapse in judgment, that she'd been trying to prove a point rather than commit violence. They'd paint me as oversensitive, as vindictive, as someone using the legal system to settle family grudges, and some people would believe it, would believe her over me, despite the evidence, despite the medical records, despite everything. Because Claire was charming and well-connected and knew how to perform remorse when necessary. Because people wanted to believe that dinner parties didn't turn deadly, that family members didn't try to kill each other over allergies, that the world was fundamentally safer than it actually was. The door opened again, and Jennifer appeared. She looked terrible. Makeup smeared, hair tangled, still wearing the dress from last night, now wrinkled and spotted with what might have been my blood from the IV insertion. But her eyes were clear, fierce, holding mine with an intensity that said she'd spent the night making decisions. "Hey," she said, crossing to the bed and taking my hand. Her grip was strong, grounding. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck full of peanuts." The joke fell flat, too dark, too soon. Sorry, I'm okay. Sore, but okay. She didn't smile. I've been on the phone all morning. With our lawyer, Sam Chen, remember him from the wedding? He does criminal defense, but he's referring us to a prosecutor he knows. With my firm's managing partner, I'm taking the week off, and they're fine with it, and with my parents. I sat up straighter, ignoring the protest from my bruised throat. You told them? I had to. They needed to know before Claire's lawyer spins this into something else, before they hear her version first. Jennifer's voice was flat, emotionless, the way she got when she was holding back something too big to feel all at once. My mother cried. My father, he was silent for a long time. Then he asked me if I was sure, if maybe there had been a mistake. The words hung between us, heavy with implication. Are you sure? Are you sure Claire, their daughter, their firstborn, their golden child, would really do this? What did you tell him? I asked quietly. I told him I watched her smile while you suffocated. I told him she admitted it out loud with witnesses. I told him that if he doubted me, he could listen to the police recording of my statement. Jennifer's composure cracked slightly, her voice breaking. Then I told him that if he chose to believe Claire over me, over the evidence, over basic medical reality, then I would have 2 parents fewer than I woke up with yesterday. Jennifer, no, she cut me off fierce. No, I will not let them make this ambiguous. I will not let them play the both sides game, like this is a disagreement about politics or religion instead of attempted murder. You nearly died on her dining room floor, Marcus. You nearly died because my sister decided her ego was more important than your life. There are no sides here. There's just what happened and what happens next. I loved her so much in that moment it hurt worse than my throat. Loved her for her certainty, for her willingness to burn bridges I knew she'd wanted to keep standing. Jennifer was close to her parents, had Sunday calls with her mother, planning sessions about holidays and vacations. She just put all of that on the line. For me, for truth, for basic fucking decency. What did they say? I asked. After you said that, my mother said she needed time to process. My father, Jennifer looked away, out the window at the parking lot below. My father said he'd call me back. That was 4 hours ago. He hasn't called back. The silence that followed was full of all the things we couldn't say. That family was supposed to protect you, not poison you. That blood was supposed to mean safety, not betrayal. That the people who were supposed to love you most were the ones who could hurt you worst because you'd never thought to guard against them. I'm sorry, I said, knowing it was inadequate. I'm sorry this is happening to your family. This isn't happening to my family, Jennifer corrected, her voice hard. This is happening because of my sister's choices, because she's spent her entire life believing the rules don't apply to her, and everyone, me included, has let her get away with it. She looked back at me, eyes bright with unshed tears. Do you know how many times I've made excuses for her? How many times I've smoothed things over when she's been cruel or dismissive or just casually vicious? I've been enabling this, training her to think she can do whatever she wants without consequences. You couldn't have known she'd do this, couldn't I? Jennifer's laugh was bitter. Remember when we first started dating? When I brought you to that family barbecue and you told them about your allergy? Claire rolled her eyes, literally rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, great, another thing to accommodate." I should have said something then, should have shut that down immediately. Instead, I laughed it off, said that was just Claire being Claire, that she didn't mean anything by it. I did remember. It had been summer, hot and bright, and I'd been nervous about meeting Jennifer's family for the first time. The eye roll had stung, but I'd done what I always did, minimized it, rationalized it, told myself it wasn't that bad. We teach people how to treat us, Jennifer continued, her voice thick with self-recrimination. And I taught my family that they could dismiss your allergy, that it was negotiable, that it was an inconvenience rather than a medical reality. Jennifer, stop. I squeezed her hand, pulling her attention back to me. This is not your fault. You did not put peanut butter in that chicken. You did not smile while I went into anaphylactic shock. Claire did that, Claire alone. You don't get to take responsibility for her choices. But I do have to live with the fact that I brought you into this family, that I exposed you to someone capable of this. Tears were falling now, unchecked. You could have died, Oid Marcus. You almost died. And it would have been because you married me, because you tried to be part of my family, because you trusted that people would respect basic boundaries. There was nothing I could say to that wouldn't sound trite. She was right. I had almost died. And it had been because I trusted in the fundamental decency of family, even difficult family. I believed that Claire's cruelty had limits, that there were lines even she wouldn't cross. I'd been wrong. A knock at the door interrupted us. The doctor from last night, though in daylight I could see he was older than I thought, just one of those faces that looked young, entered with a tablet in a more rested expression. Mr. Chen, how are we feeling this morning? Like I survived attempted murder, I said flatly. He had the grace not to flinch. I've reviewed your overnight monitoring. No signs of biphasic reaction, which is excellent news. Your vitals are stable. Throat inflammation has decreased significantly. He pulled up a stool, sitting so he was at eye level. I'm comfortable discharging you this afternoon with prescriptions for an oral steroid taper and additional EpiPens. You'll need to follow up with your primary care physician within the week and with an allergist as soon as possible. Okay, the mundane practicality of medical care continuing despite everything. What about legal stuff? Evidence? The hospital has documented everything. Photos of your throat inflammation, all your vitals throughout the night, the treatments administered. We have the food sample the EMTs collected, which we've preserved for forensic analysis. And I've written a detailed medical report that will be available to law enforcement in the district attorney's office. He paused, his expression serious. For what it's worth, in 15 years of emergency medicine, I've never seen a clearer case of deliberate poisoning. Usually these things are ambiguous. People claiming food tampering without proof or accidental cross-contamination. But this was intentional, admitted, and nearly fatal. The DA will have everything they need. Will he have to testify today? Jennifer asked. At trial, I mean, if it goes to trial. Possibly, probably actually, but that's months away if it happens at all. The doctor stood, pocketing his tablet. Most cases like this don't make it to trial. Once the evidence is laid out, once the defendant's lawyer sees the medical records and the witness statements and the physical evidence, they usually push for a plea deal. It's less risky for everyone involved. A plea deal. Claire standing in a courtroom, her lawyer beside her, agreeing to lesser charges in exchange for a guaranteed conviction. Would that be justice? Would that be enough? I didn't know. Wasn't sure I'd know even after it happened. Thank you, Doctor, Jennifer said, standing to shake his hand. For everything. For taking this seriously. It should always be taken seriously, he replied. Food allergies kill people every year. And when someone weaponizes that knowledge, when they deliberately trigger anaphylaxis, that's not a prank. That's not a misunderstanding. That's assault. Plain and simple. After he left, Jennifer and I sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, life continued. Cars in the parking lot, people coming and going, the ordinary machinery of a Tuesday morning. Somewhere in this same building, babies were being born. Somewhere else, someone was dying. And here, in this room, I was confronting the fact that someone I'd known for 5 years, someone I'd shared holidays and birthdays with, someone who was supposed to be family, had tried to kill me. What do we do now? I asked, echoing my question from last night. Now? Jennifer's expression hardened into something I'd seen in courtrooms when she was cross-examining hostile witnesses. Now we let the legal system do its job. Now we cooperate fully with the prosecution. Now we make sure that every piece of evidence is documented, preserved, and presented. And now we wait. Wait for what? Wait for Claire to realize that her charm and her money and her privilege aren't going to save her this time. Wait for my parents to decide which side of this they're on. Wait for the trial or the plea deal or whatever comes next. She stood, gathering her purse, checking her phone for messages that hadn't come. And while we wait, we rebuild, we heal, We figure out what life looks like on the other side of this. What does it look like? I asked, genuinely uncertain. On the other side? Jennifer came back to the bed, taking both my hands in hers. I don't know, but I know it looks like you, alive. Like us, together. Like a family that's smaller but safer. Like boundaries that actually mean something. She leaned down, pressing her forehead to mine. Like justice, real justice. Not the kind that gets swept under the rug for the sake of keeping the peace. The kind that says your life matters. That actions have consequences. That nobody, not even blood, not even family, gets to hurt you and walk away. I closed my eyes, breathing her in, feeling the solid reality of her presence. She was right. Whatever came next, trials, testimony, family fractures, public scandal, we'd face it together. And we'd make sure that this time, this one time, someone who'd spent their life avoiding consequences would finally face them. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. Another text from David. Claire's arraignment is this afternoon at 2 p.m. Her lawyer is pushing for bail. Thought you should know. I showed it to Jennifer. She read it, her jaw tightening. We should be there. At the arraignment. We should be in that courtroom when they decide whether to let her out. Are you sure? You don't have to. Yes, I do. Her voice was steel wrapped in silk, that particular combination that made her dangerous in courtrooms. I need to look my sister in the eye. I need her to see that I'm on your side completely and without reservation. I need her to understand that this isn't going away, that she doesn't get to do this and then go home to her comfortable life like nothing happened. I nodded, understanding. This was about more than legal strategy. This was about drawing a line in the sand, about making visible the choice Jennifer had made, choosing me over blood, choosing truth over family peace, choosing justice over convenience. Okay, I said, then we'll be there. We would be there. And we would watch as Claire faced her first real consequence, watch as she stood before a judge and heard the charges read aloud. Assault with a deadly weapon, reckless endangerment, attempted murder. Watch as she realized, perhaps for the first time, that her actions had weight, had meaning, had cost, but that would come later. For now, I was alive, breathing, healing. And that in itself was a kind of victory, the kind measured in heartbeats and breaths and the continued presence of a future that had, for 5 terrible minutes last night, hung in the balance. The courthouse was built in that particular architectural style that screamed institutional authority, all concrete and glass and sharp angles designed to make you feel small. Jennifer and I climbed the steps slowly, my legs still weak from yesterday's chemical cocktail of anaphylaxis and epinephrine and antihistamines. Each step was a small victory, a reminder that I was here, alive, when I so easily could have been in a morgue instead of a courtroom. You okay? Jennifer's hand was firm on my elbow, steadying me. She'd gone home that morning to shower and change, returning to the hospital in a charcoal suit that meant business, the one she wore for depositions with hostile witnesses. War paint, she called it. Armor. I'm fine, I lied. My throat still felt raw, like someone had taken sandpaper to my esophagus. Every swallow was a reminder. Every breath carried the ghost of last night's struggle. The courthouse lobby was busy with the usual Tuesday afternoon traffic, lawyers in expensive suits rushing between courtrooms, families clustered on benches looking lost and worried, court officers with bored expressions checking bags and waving people through metal detectors. We joined the security line and I emptied my pockets. Wallet, keys, phone, the new EpiPen the hospital pharmacy had given me this morning. The security officer, an older black man with kind eyes, paused at the EpiPen. You're going to need to declare that. Medical necessity? Yes. The word came out rougher than intended. Severe peanut allergy. I almost died from it yesterday. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or sympathy. Chen case? The poisoning? News traveled fast, apparently. Or maybe courthouse security heard everything, saw everything, knew every case before it was even called. That's me. He waved me through without another word. But I felt his eyes on my back as we crossed to the elevators. Jennifer punched the button for the 3rd floor, criminal court. Everyone's going to know, I said quietly as we waited. Everyone's going to be looking at us. Good. Jennifer's voice was flat, emotionless. That lawyer tone that meant she'd locked away everything soft and vulnerable. Let them look. Let them see what she did. Let them see that we're not backing down. The elevator dinged, and we stepped in alongside a woman in a public defender's blazer and a teenager with a court summons clutched in his shaking hands. We rode up in silence, each person carrying their own burden of justice or injustice, whatever the system would decide it was. Courtroom 3C was already half full when we arrived. I recognized Sergeant Williams from last night, conferring with a woman in a Navy suit, the prosecutor probably. Officer Brennan sat in the back row, notebook open, still taking notes even though the proceedings hadn't started. And there, in the front row, looking somehow both smaller and more defiant than I remembered, was Claire. She'd changed clothes, no longer the cashmere sweater, now a dove-gray dress that probably cost more than my car payment, paired with pearls. The jewelry of respectability. The uniform of women who'd never spent a night in jail and couldn't quite believe it had happened to them. Her hair was perfect, professionally styled despite the circumstances. Her makeup was flawless. But her eyes were red-rimmed and furious. David sat beside her, and he looked worse than she did. His suit was wrinkled, his tie crooked. He'd aged 10 years overnight, lines etched around his mouth that I'd never noticed before. When he saw us enter, he flinched, actually flinched, like we'd struck him. Claire turned, following his gaze, and her expression when she saw us was pure venom. Not remorse, not shame, not apology, just rage that we were here, that we were doing this, that we weren't letting her get away with it. Jennifer met her eyes and didn't look away. Didn't blink, just stared at her sister across the courtroom with an expression that said everything that words couldn't. I see you, I see what you are, and I'm done pretending I don't. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, the woman in the Navy suit approached us, mid-40s, professional, with the efficient movements of someone who handled 36 cases a day. I'm Assistant District Attorney Rebecca Martinez. I'm handling this case. Do you have a few minutes before the arraignment starts? I'd like to brief you on what to expect. We followed her into the hallway, away from Claire's glaring presence. Martinez pulled out a tablet, swiping through documents with practiced speed. First, I want to thank you for the thoroughness of your documentation. The photos, the text, the timeline, it's made my job significantly easier. She looked up, meeting my eyes. Usually in poisoning cases, we struggle with evidence. It's he said, she said, or the victim didn't preserve the food, or there's ambiguity about intent. But your case, it's airtight. We have her admission, recorded by the EMTs and corroborated by witnesses. We have the food sample, which we've sent for lab analysis to confirm peanut content. We have your medical records showing the severity of the reaction. And we have your photographic documentation. What happens today? Jennifer asked, her hand finding mine, squeezing tight. Today is just the arraignment. The judge will read the charges, and Ms. Patterson, that's Claire's lawyer, Diane Patterson, very expensive, very good, will argue for bail. I'll argue against it, citing the severity of the crime and the risk of flight. Then the judge will make a decision. What are the chances she gets bail? The thought of Claire walking out of here, going back to her perfect house with her perfect things, made my stomach turn. Martinez's expression was carefully neutral. Honestly, pretty good. She has no prior criminal record. She has significant ties to the community. She owns property. Despite the severity of the crime, she's not considered a flight risk by traditional metrics. The judge will probably grant bail, possibly with conditions, no contact with you, surrender of passport, regular check-ins. So she tried to kill me, and she gets to go home. The words came out bitter, angry. That's justice? That's due process, Martinez corrected gently. Bail isn't punishment. It's just a guarantee that she'll show up for trial. The real justice comes later, at trial or in a plea agreement. And trust me, Mr. Chen, with the evidence we have, justice will come. The question is just what form it takes. Meaning that once Patterson sees the full discovery, Once she understands just how strong our case is, she's going to push hard for a plea deal. Assault with a deadly weapon carries serious time in this state, especially when the intent is this clear. Add in the fact that the victim nearly died, that there was explicit knowledge of the allergy, that there was admission of intent. We're looking at potentially 5 to 10 years if this goes to trial and we get a conviction. 5 to 10 years. I tried to imagine Claire in prison for 5 years, 10 years, and couldn't. She was annoying, insufferable, cruel in small ways I'd learned to tolerate. But prison? That seemed excessive somehow, even after what she'd done. Then I remembered the feeling of my throat closing, the darkness creeping in at the edges of my vision, the certainty that I was dying on her dining room floor while she smiled. Maybe 5 to 10 years wasn't excessive after all. What kind of plea deal are we talking about? Jennifer asked, her lawyer brain already working through the angles. That's still being negotiated. Patterson's already reached out. They want to plead down to reckless endangerment, no jail time, probation, and community service. I've rejected that. It's too light for what happened. I'm countering with assault in the second degree, minimum 2 years, with credit for time served and possibility of parole after 18 months. And if she doesn't take the plea, then we go to trial. And I promise you, with the evidence we have, we'll win. Martinez's confidence was absolute. But I wanted to prepare you. Trials are ugly. Your medical history will be dissected. Your relationship with Claire will be examined. The defense will try to paint you as oversensitive, as vindictive, as someone using the legal system to settle family scores. They'll bring in experts to say the peanut exposure wasn't significant enough to be truly life-threatening. They'll argue that Claire didn't intend serious harm, that she was just trying to prove a point. It will be exhausting and invasive and traumatic. But we'd win, I said, needing to hear it again. We'd win. A bailiff appeared in the hallway. Martinez, judge is ready. We filed back into the courtroom, taking seats in the second row, close enough to see everything, far enough back to not be directly in the line of fire. The room filled up around us. More lawyers, a court reporter, a sketch artist from the local paper. This was news, apparently. Woman arrested for allegedly poisoning brother-in-law. The headline practically wrote itself. All rise, the bailiff's voice boomed through the courtroom. The Honorable Judge Patricia Hernandez presiding. Judge Hernandez was a small woman, maybe 5'2", but she carried herself with the authority of someone who'd been making life-altering decisions for decades. She took the bench with efficient movements, scanning the courtroom with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Please be seated. We're here for the arraignment of Claire Whitmore, case number CR 2024-8847. Will counsel approach? Claire's lawyer stood, Diane Patterson, tall and blonde, and wearing a suit that probably cost what I made in a month. Martinez joined her at the bench, and they conferred in low voices with the judge, too quiet for us to hear. Claire sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, the picture of composed innocence. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw was clenched tight enough to crack teeth. David sat beside her like a ghost, pale and insubstantial. The lawyers returned to their tables, and Judge Hernandez consulted her notes. Ms. Whitmore, please rise. Claire stood, Patterson beside her. Up close, I could see that her hands were trembling slightly. Good. You are charged with assault with a deadly weapon, specifically the deliberate introduction of peanuts into food served to an individual with a known severe peanut allergy, resulting in anaphylactic shock and nearly causing death. You are also charged with reckless endangerment. How do you plead? Patterson's voice was clear, professional, betraying nothing. Not guilty, Your Honor. Of course, not guilty, despite the evidence, despite the witnesses, despite everything. Not guilty meant this would drag on, meant months of legal maneuvering, meant reliving this nightmare again and again. Your Honor, Martinez stood, her voice firm. The people request that bail be denied in this case. The defendant engaged in deliberate, premeditated poisoning of her brother-in-law, fully aware that he could die from the exposure. She showed no remorse. In fact, she smiled while watching him suffer. This is not a case of poor judgment or accidental harm. This is attempted murder, and the defendant should be held without bail pending trial. Patterson was on her feet immediately. Your Honor, that's simply not accurate. My client made a terrible mistake, yes, but there was no intent to cause serious harm. Ms. Whitmore believed, incorrectly but genuinely, that her brother-in-law was exaggerating his allergy. She was trying to prove a point, not commit violence. She has no criminal record. She has deep ties to the community. She owns property worth over $2 million. She is not a flight risk, and she is not a danger to the community. The people's characterization is inflammatory and unsupported. Judge Hernandez held up a hand, silencing them both. I've reviewed the arrest report and the preliminary evidence. Ms. Martinez, while I understand your concerns, bail is not punishment. It's a mechanism to ensure appearance at the trial. Ms. Patterson, your client's actions were serious and nearly fatal. This is not a matter to be dismissed lightly. My heart was pounding. Jennifer's hand in mine was crushing, painful. Bail is set at $500,000 as your bond. Judge Hernandez's voice was final, brooking no argument. Conditions: surrender of passport, no contact with the victim or any prosecution witnesses, weekly check-ins with pretrial services, and electronic monitoring via ankle bracelet. Ms. Whitmore, do you understand these conditions? Yes, Your Honor. Claire's voice was small, defeated. $500,000, substantial, but for Claire and David, payable. They'd have her out by tonight, probably. Home, surrounded by her expensive things, pretending this was all a misunderstanding. Preliminary hearing is set for 3 weeks from today. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a crack that felt like a gunshot. People started moving, gathering papers, conferring in urgent whispers. Martinez turned to us, her expression apologetic. I'm sorry I tried for no bail. We know, Jennifer said, though her voice was tight with disappointment. Thank you for trying. We stood, preparing to leave, but Claire's voice cut across the courtroom, loud enough to be heard despite the bailiff's attempt to hush her. This is insane. I didn't try to kill anyone. He's overreacting like he always does. She was standing now, pointing at me with a shaking hand. You're destroying my life over a little peanut butter. You're tearing apart this family because you can't take a joke. Ms. Whitmore. Patterson tried to restrain her, but Claire shook her off. I spent hours on that dinner. Hours. And this is how you repay me? By having me arrested? By ruining my reputation? That's enough. Judge Hernandez's voice cracked like a whip. Ms. Whitmore, you will sit down and be quiet, or I will hold you in contempt and revoke your bail entirely. Do you understand? Claire sat, but her eyes never left mine. The fury in them was incandescent, bright enough to burn. She wasn't sorry, wasn't repentant. She was angry, angry that she'd been caught, angry that there were consequences, angry that the victim had survived and was standing in her courtroom refusing to be silent. Let's go, Jennifer murmured, tugging me toward the door. Let's get out of here. We walked past Claire and David, past Patterson with her expensive suit and her impossible job, past Martinez with her tablet full of evidence. We walked out of the courtroom and down the hallway and into the elevator. And only when the doors closed, when we were alone in that small metal box descending toward ground level, did I let myself feel it. Not relief, not satisfaction, not vindication, just exhaustion. Bone-deep, soul-tired exhaustion. The kind that comes from having to fight for something that should have been automatic. The right to not be poisoned. The right to have your medical needs taken seriously. The right to live. She's going to get out tonight, I said quietly. She's going to post bail and go home. I know. Jennifer's voice was hollow. But she'll have an ankle monitor. She can't contact us. And the preliminary hearing is in 3 weeks. Then it moves forward. Trial or plea deal, one way or another. 3 weeks, and then months of trial if she doesn't take a plea. Maybe a year before this is over. Maybe. Jennifer leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly looking as exhausted as I felt. Or maybe Patterson will convince her to take the plea once she sees the full evidence. Maybe this ends sooner rather than later. The elevator reached the ground floor, and the doors opened onto the busy courthouse lobby. We stepped out into the flow of people. Just two more figures in the machinery of justice, and made our way toward the exit. Outside, the November afternoon was cold and bright, the sun sharp enough to make me squint. We stood on the courthouse steps, neither of us quite ready to move yet, to return to our car and our house and our lives that would never be quite the same. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You should be ashamed of yourself. Claire is a good person who made a mistake. You're going to regret destroying her life over this." I showed it to Jennifer. Her expression went from exhausted to furious in half a second. "Who is that?" "I don't know. Maybe one of Claire's friends. Maybe her lawyer's office." I deleted the text, blocking him all out the number. Doesn't matter. But it did matter, because it meant that the narrative was already being written. The story already being spun. Poor Claire victimized by her oversensitive brother-in-law. Poor Claire having her life ruined over a harmless prank. Poor Claire destroyed by someone who couldn't take a joke. Never mind that I'd nearly died. Never mind that she'd admitted it, smiled about it, showed no remorse. The victim was becoming the villain, and the perpetrator was becoming the martyr. "We need to be ready," I said quietly, "for more of this, for people taking her side, for the story getting twisted." "I know." Jennifer took my hand again, holding tight. "But we have the truth. We have the evidence, and we have each other. That's going to have to be enough." We walked down the courthouse steps together, into the cold, bright afternoon, into whatever came next. Behind us, Claire was posting bail, preparing to go home, planning her defense. Ahead of us lay months of legal maneuvering, of testimony, of reliving the worst night of my life over and over for judges and juries and lawyers. But for now, I was alive, breathing, standing in the sunlight with my wife beside me, choosing truth over comfort, justice over peace. For now, that was enough. It had to be. The messages started that night. Not just texts, emails, social media DMs, even a handwritten note left on our doorstep that Jennifer found when she went out to get the mail. All variations on the same theme: you're overreacting. Claire made a mistake. Drop the charges. Families forgive. I sat at our kitchen table, my laptop open, scrolling through an email from Jennifer's Aunt Linda, her mother's sister, a woman who'd sent us a crystal vase for our wedding and Christmas cards with long, newsy letters about her grandchildren. "Dear Marcus," the email began, in that particular font choice that only people over 60 seem to use. Comic Sans, because apparently attempted murder warranted whimsy. "I hope you are feeling better. I heard about the unfortunate incident at Claire's dinner party, and I wanted to reach out." Unfortunate incident, like a fender bender, like spilled wine on a carpet. "I know Claire can be difficult sometimes," Linda continued, "but she would never intentionally hurt anyone. She's always been so particular about her dinner parties, so proud of her hosting. I'm sure she was just trying to prove that allergies aren't as serious as people make them out to be. You know how she is. She always thinks she knows best." I could feel my blood pressure rising with each word. Jennifer was on the phone in the living room, talking to her mother for the third time that day, her voice getting progressively sharper. Through the doorway, I could hear fragments. "No, Mom, I will not think about the family. He nearly died. Do you understand? I don't care if she's embarrassed. She should be in jail." I kept reading. "Maybe you could consider dropping the charges? I know you have every legal right to pursue this, but think about what it's doing to the family. Your mother-in-law is beside herself. Your father-in-law won't eat. Claire is devastated. And for what? You're fine now. You got medical attention. These things happen. These things happen." My hands were shaking. I closed the laptop before I did something I'd regret, like responding, like telling Linda exactly where she could shove her crystal vase and her Comic Sans font and her suggestion that attempted murder was just one of those things that happen, like forgetting someone's birthday or showing up late to Thanksgiving. "Marcus?" Jennifer appeared in the doorway, her face flushed, eyes bright with unshed tears. "My mother wants to talk to you." "I don't think that's a good idea right now. Please, she's trying. She's just confused. And Claire's been calling her constantly, crying, telling her version of events." Jennifer held out her phone like an offering, like a test. Please, just talk to her. I took the phone, pressing it to my ear. Helen, Marcus, my mother-in-law's voice was strained, careful. How are you feeling, sweetheart? The endearment felt wrong, misplaced. Like she was talking to the Marcus from before, the one who came to Sunday dinners and helped her set up her new iPad, and pretended not to notice when Claire made snide comments about my books or my clothes or my very existence. I've been better. Someone tried to kill me. Silence. Then, that's not, Claire says she was just trying to prove a point, that you've been exaggerating your allergy for years to get attention, to make things difficult. I closed my eyes, counted to 5. Helen, I have medical records going back to childhood. I've carried an EpiPen since I was 8 years old. My cousin died from the same allergy when we were 7. This isn't something I made up for attention. But Claire said Claire tried to murder me. The words came out flat, emotionless. She put peanut butter in my food, knowing I was severely allergic. She admitted it. She smiled while I suffocated. She's not confused. She's not mistaken. She knew exactly what she was doing. Another silence, longer this time. I could hear Helen breathing, could imagine her in her pristine kitchen in the house where Jennifer grew up, surrounded by photos of her daughters at various ages, trying to reconcile the Claire she'd raised with the Claire who'd poisoned her son-in-law. Maybe, Helen's voice was small now, uncertain. Maybe if you just talked to her. Maybe if you heard her side. I heard her side. Her side was, I wanted to see if you were really allergic or just being dramatic. That was her side, while I was dying. You're not being fair. I'm not being fair? My voice rose despite my best efforts to stay calm. Helen, your daughter tried to kill me because she didn't believe in allergies. Because her ego was more important than my life. And you're asking me to be fair? She's my daughter. And I'm your son-in-law. Doesn't that count for something? Doesn't the fact that I nearly died count for something? I heard Jennifer's sharp intake of breath from across the room. I was saying the things she couldn't say, asking the questions she was too afraid to ask. Do I matter? Do I count? Or is blood the only thing that matters, even when that blood tried to poison me? Of course you matter, Helen said, but her voice lacked conviction. Of course you do. This is tearing the Foster family apart, Marcus. Can't you see that? If you press charges, if this goes to trial, we'll never be the same. Claire will have a criminal record. She might go to prison. Is that what you want? What I wanted, I said slowly, carefully, was to eat dinner without being poisoned. What I wanted was for my medical needs to be respected. What I wanted was to not die on your daughter's dining room floor. I didn't get any of those things. So yes, Helen, I want Claire to face consequences. I want her to understand that she can't try to kill people and walk away because family is supposed to forgive everything. That's not, you're twisting. Helen's voice broke. Please, Marcus, please just think about this. Think about what you're doing to this family. I'm not doing anything to this family. Claire did this. Claire chose this. And everyone asking me to drop the charges, asking me to be the bigger person, asking me to forgive and forget. You're all choosing her over me. You're all saying that her comfort matters more than my life. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Helen? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're asking me to let your daughter get away with attempted murder so that Thanksgiving won't be awkward. The silence that followed was profound. Through it, I could hear Helen crying softly, the sound of a woman whose world had shifted 3 degrees to the left and nothing lined up quite right anymore. I don't know what I'm saying, she finally whispered. I don't know what to think. This doesn't feel real. None of this feels real. It's real, I said, gentler now. It happened. And I'm sorry it's tearing your family apart. I really am. But I can't be the one who sacrifices my safety, my justice, my dignity to keep everyone comfortable. That's not fair to ask of me. I know. Her voice was so small. I know. I wish this hadn't happened. I wish Claire had never. I wish a lot of things. So do I. We said our goodbyes, awkward, stilted, full of things we couldn't say. I handed the phone back to Jennifer, and she took it without a word, disappearing back into the living room to finish her conversation. I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at my closed laptop, at the ceramic fruit bowl on the table. One of Claire's cast-offs, something she'd given us when she redecorated, because Claire was always redecorating, always replacing perfectly good things with newer, better things. The bowl had a small chip on the rim, damaged goods, not good enough for Claire's house, but fine for ours. I picked it up, felt the weight of it. Then I walked to the trash can and dropped it in. It shattered with a satisfying crash, ceramic shards mixing with coffee grounds and banana peels. Feel better? Jennifer stood in the doorway watching me. A little. I looked at the broken pieces. We can't keep things she gave us. Not anymore. Every time I look at something from her, I'll remember. I'll see her smiling while I choked. Okay. Jennifer crossed to the cabinets, opening them systematically. Then let's get rid of it all. The bowl, the serving platter, the wine glasses from our wedding, the picture frames, all of it. We'll throw it away or donate it or smash it in the driveway if that's what you need. But we're not keeping her in our house anymore. It took an hour. We went through every room identifying Claire's contributions to our home, gifts, hand-me-downs, things she'd insisted we needed. The crystal vase from Aunt Linda joined the pile. The decorative throw pillows Claire had given us last Christmas. The cookbook she'd inscribed with, "To Marcus and Jennifer, may you always make good food together." The irony of that one was almost funny, almost. We carried it all out to the garage, boxes and bags full of Claire's presents, ready to be hauled away. Jennifer stood looking at the pile, her arms crossed over her chest, defensive. "This feels petty," she said. "Throwing away gifts. It's not petty, it's self-preservation." I put my arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. We can't heal while surrounded by reminders. We can't move forward while she's still in every room. My phone buzzed. Another text, this one from a number I recognized. David. Claire is home. Ankle monitor is on. She's devastated. She keeps saying she didn't mean for any of this to happen. I don't know what to do. I showed it to Jennifer. She read it, her expression hardening. What does he want us to do? Absolve her? Tell him it's okay? I think he just wants someone to tell him how to fix this, because that's what David does. He fixes things, he smooths things over, he makes problems go away. Some problems can't be fixed, Jennifer said. Some things can't be smoothed over. I texted back. She should have thought about consequences before she tried to kill me. This is not something I can fix for her. The response came immediately. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She won't stop crying, won't eat, just keeps saying over and over that she was right, that you weren't really allergic, that you're exaggerating. I stared at the screen, feeling something cold settle in my chest. She's still saying I'm faking. Even after the hospital, the arrest, the arraignment, she still thinks I'm exaggerating. Jennifer took the phone, read the message. Her face went pale. She's delusional. She has to be. No one could be this willfully blind. Another text from David. Her lawyer wants her to do a psych evaluation. Says it might help with the defense, showing diminished capacity or something. But Claire won't do it. Says there's nothing wrong with her. That everyone else is crazy. Diminished capacity, Jennifer said slowly. They're going to argue she's not mentally competent, that she didn't understand what she was doing. Will that work? I don't know, maybe. If they can prove she's delusional, that she genuinely couldn't comprehend that peanuts could kill you. Jennifer trailed off, thinking it through with her lawyer brain. But it's a hard sell. She knew about the allergy. She deliberately added peanut butter. She admitted intent. That's not diminished capacity. That's just being wrong and arrogant about it. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Marcus Chen? The voice was professional, female, unfamiliar. Yes? This is Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. I'm a psychiatrist who's been asked to evaluate Claire Whitmore. Her lawyer gave me your contact information. I was hoping we could talk. I put the phone on speaker so Jennifer could hear. What do you need from me? I'm trying to get a complete picture of Ms. Whitmore's behavior patterns. Her lawyer has asked me to assess whether she was suffering from any mental illness or delusional disorder that might have impaired her judgment. I understand you've known her for several years? 5 years since I started dating my wife. And in that time, did you notice any signs of delusional thinking? Any persistent false beliefs that she maintained despite evidence to the contrary? I thought about it, really thought about it. She's always been dismissive of things she doesn't personally experience. Other people's pain, other people's limitations. If she hasn't felt it, it's not real to her, Mom. Is that delusional? That's more narcissistic personality traits than delusion, Dr. Okonkwo said carefully. Delusion would be if she believed something impossible. For example, if she thought she had magical powers that could cure allergies. Did she ever express beliefs like that? No, she just thought I was lying, exaggerating for attention. She said as much, many times to my face and to others. And did she ever seem to lose touch with reality in other ways? Hallucinations, paranoia, belief that she was being persecuted? No. I felt disappointed somehow, like I wanted there to be an explanation, a reason beyond simple cruelty. She was just arrogant, convinced she was right and everyone else was wrong. Wisarto Konkwo was silent for a moment. Mr. Chen, I'm going to be honest with you. Based on what I'm hearing from you, from her lawyer, from the arrest reports, I don't think Miss Whitmore meets the criteria for diminished capacity. I think she's a person with poor insight and significant narcissistic traits who made a catastrophically bad decision. But that's not the same as being mentally incompetent. So what will you tell her lawyer? I'll write my report based on my findings. If they choose to use it in her defense, that's up to them. But I wanted you to know, because you're the victim here, and you deserve to know that I'm not finding evidence of mental illness. I'm finding evidence of someone who prioritized being right over someone else's life. After she hung up, Jennifer and I stood in the garage surrounded by boxes of Claire's discarded gifts, processing what we just heard. No diminished capacity defense, Jennifer said, which means they'll probably push harder for a plea deal. Patterson knows they can't win at trial without some kind of mitigating factor. How long until we hear about that? Days, maybe a week. Martinez will call when they make an offer. We went back inside, leaving the boxes in the garage to deal with tomorrow. The house felt emptier now, lighter, like we'd expelled a malignant presence. We ordered dinner, Thai food, carefully confirming with the restaurant that there were no peanuts, no cross-contamination, the ritual I went through with every meal outside our home. The food arrived 40 minutes later, and we ate in silence at our kitchen table, the absence of the ceramic bowl suddenly very noticeable. Are you okay? Jennifer asked finally. Really okay? I don't know. I keep waiting to fall apart. To have a breakdown or a panic attack or whatever you're supposed to have after something like this. But I just feel numb and angry and tired. That's normal. Trauma doesn't always look like what we think it should look like. Did your mom say anything else after I hung up? Jennifer set down her fork, not meeting my eyes. She asked if we'd consider family therapy, all of us, me, you, her, Dad, Claire, together, to work through this. No, the word came out harder than I intended. Absolutely not. I'm not sitting in a room with Claire, with everyone asking me to see her side, to understand her perspective, to forgive. That's not therapy. That's just another way of asking me to make this easier for her. I know, I told her no. Told her that ship has sailed, burned, and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. Jennifer finally looked up, and her eyes were red. She cried, said I was choosing you over family. You are choosing. Hey, that's what marriage means. I know, and I don't regret it, but it still hurts. Choosing between you and them shouldn't be a choice I have to make. It should be obvious. You're my husband. You nearly died. There should be no question whose side they're on. But there is a question. But there is, she agreed quietly. We finished dinner in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Afterward, Jennifer went to take a shower, and I sat on our couch scrolling through my phone. More messages had accumulated, some supportive, from my own family and friends who were horrified by what had happened. But others were from Jennifer's extended family, her college friends, People who'd known Claire longer than they'd known me. Can't you just drop this? For Jennifer's sake? Family is more important than pride. Claire made a mistake, but prison won't fix anything. Think about what this is doing to your wife. That last one made me see red. Think about what this was doing to Jennifer. As if I'd caused this. As if my insistence on not being murdered was the problem, not the actual attempted murder. I was about to turn off my phone entirely when a new email notification popped up. The sender, Diane Patterson, Claire's lawyer. My finger hovered over the delete button. Then, curiosity winning over anger, I opened it. Mr. Chen, I hope this email finds you recovering well. I'm writing to you directly, with Ms. Whitmore's knowledge and permission, to discuss the possibility of a resolution to this matter that doesn't involve a lengthy trial. My client deeply regrets her actions and the harm they caused you. She acknowledges that she made a serious error in judgment and wants to make amends. To that end, we would like to propose the following. Ms. Whitmore will plead guilty to reckless endangerment. She will serve 6 months in county jail, followed by 2 years of supervised probation. She will pay for all of your medical expenses, plus an additional $50,000 in restitution for pain and suffering. She will issue a public apology and will have no contact with you or your wife for a minimum of 5 years. In exchange, we ask that you agree to this plea deal and provide a victim impact statement supporting leniency in sentencing. I understand this is a difficult decision. I encourage you to discuss it with your wife and with the district attorney's office. But I want you to know that my client is genuinely remorseful and wants to take responsibility for her actions. Please let me know if you'd be willing to consider this proposal. Regards, Diane Patterson. I read it twice, then 3 times. 6 months in jail, $50,000. A public apology. It sounded reasonable on paper. It sounded like justice in a compressed, convenient form. But something about it made my skin crawl. Jennifer emerged from the bathroom, her hair wet, wearing pajamas. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I handed her my phone. She read the email, her expression cycling through surprise, anger, and something that might have been consideration. 6 months, she said finally. That's actually more than I expected them to offer. You think I should take it? She looked at me for a long moment. I think you should do whatever you need to do to feel safe and whole again. If that means taking the plea deal and moving on, fine. If that means going to trial and making her face a jury, also fine. This is your decision, Marcus, not mine, not my family's. Yours. I took the phone back, staring at Patterson's carefully worded email. Genuinely remorseful. Was Claire remorseful? Or was she just sorry she'd been caught? Sorry there were consequences. Sorry her perfect life had been interrupted by the inconvenient survival of her victim. I closed the email without responding. I need to think about it. Talk to Martinez. Sleep on it. Okay. Jennifer curled up beside me on the couch, her head on my shoulder. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. We sat there as the evening darkened into night, as the house settled around us. As somewhere across town, Claire sat in her beautiful home with an ankle monitor on and her lawyer's plea deal on the table. The unraveling had begun. The family was fracturing. And somewhere in the middle of it all, I had to decide what justice looked like, what it cut, and whether it was worth the price. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in bed watching the shadows from passing cars slide across our ceiling, thinking about justice and revenge and the difference between the two. Jennifer slept fitfully beside me, occasionally murmuring things I couldn't quite make out. Apologies maybe, or arguments with people who weren't there. At 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely and went to my office, the spare bedroom we'd converted when I started working from home occasionally. My laptop sat on the desk where I'd left it, and I opened it, pulling up the email from Diane Patterson again. 6 months, $50,000, a public apology. I opened a new document and started typing. Not a response to Patterson, not yet, but a list. 2 columns, one labeled Take the Plea, the other Go to Trial. Under Take the Plea, I wrote, faster resolution, guaranteed outcome, less traumatic, no testimony, no cross-examination, money for medical bills and therapy. Claire admits guilt can move on sooner. Less stress on Jennifer family might forgive me eventually. Under go to trial, I wrote full accountability, public record of what she did, longer sentence, potentially, sends message that this isn't okay. Claire can't minimize or rewrite history. Justice, not just resolution, but exhausting, invasive, traumatic. But uncertain outcome, jury could acquit. But months of reliving this. But family will hate me forever. I stared at the list, trying to find clarity in the competing factors. The logical choice was obvious. Take the plea. Guaranteed conviction, guaranteed jail time, guaranteed money. No risk of acquittal, no months of legal limbo, done and dusted in a few weeks. But something in me resisted. Something that remembered Claire's smile, her casual admission, her absolute certainty that she'd done nothing wrong. 6 months felt light for attempting to murder someone. 6 months felt like a slap on the wrist, like a minor inconvenience for someone who tried to kill me to prove a point. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Martinez. Saw Patterson's email. Need to talk before you respond. Call me when you're up. It was 3:15 in the morning. Was Martinez not sleeping either? I hit dial. She answered on the second ring. Chen, you saw the proposal? I saw it. Patterson CC'd you? Professional courtesy. We're negotiating, not adversaries. Martinez sounded tired but alert, like she'd been awake 4 hours too. What's your initial reaction? Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to take it and be done. Part of me wants to watch her face a jury and hear every detail of what she did read out in open court. Both are valid responses, but I need you to understand what each choice means. I heard papers rustling, Martinez pulling up files. If you take the plea, Claire serves 6 months in county, probably out in 4 with good behavior. She has a felony record. The public apology goes in the local paper and probably gets picked up by some national outlets because it's a weird enough story. She pays restitution. It's over by spring. And if we go to trial? Trial is scheduled for April, 5 months from now. Discovery, depositions, jury selection. The actual trial probably takes 2 weeks. I put you on the stand. You describe everything that happened, in detail, in front of a courtroom full of strangers and press. Patterson cross-examines you, tries to poke holes in your story, suggests you're exaggerating or vindictive. She brings in Claire's character witnesses, friends, colleagues, people who will say she's a good person who made a mistake. She might bring in defense experts to argue the peanut exposure wasn't life-threatening, that you overreacted, that Claire didn't intend serious harm. But you said we'd win. I believe we will. The evidence is strong, but juries are unpredictable. And even if we win, Patterson will argue for minimum sentencing. Maybe a year, maybe less. There's no guarantee Claire does more time after a trial than she would under the plea deal. I felt something sink in my chest. So I could put myself through months of hell, and she might get the same sentence anyway? Possibly. Or the jury could give her the maximum, 5 to 10 years. It's impossible to predict. Martinez paused. I've been doing this for 15 years. I can tell you that most victims choose the plea. Trials are brutal, especially in cases like this where the defendant has money and a good lawyer. Patterson will make you look like the bad guy. She'll dissect your medical history, your relationship with Claire, your motives. She'll suggest you're using the legal system to punish Claire for years of perceived slights. But I nearly died. And I will make sure the jury knows that. I will present every piece of evidence, every medical record, every expert witness. But trials aren't about truth. They're about which story the jury believes. And Patterson is very good at telling stories. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down. What would you do if it were you? That's not a fair question. I know, but I'm asking anyway. Martinez was silent for a long moment. Then, if it were me, I'd take the plea. Not because I don't believe in the trial, not because I don't think we'd win, but because healing matters more than revenge. Because 6 months of guaranteed jail time sends a message. Because the public apology and the restitution matter. Because being done with this and moving forward with your life matters. But it feels like letting her off easy. I know, but easy is relative. Claire is going to jail. She's going to have a felony record. She's going to lose her standing in her social circle. She's going to have to publicly admit she tried to kill you. That's not nothing, Chen. That's significant consequences for someone who's never faced consequences before. After we hung up, I sat in the dark of my office, staring at my two-column list. The logical choice was clear. The emotional choice was muddier. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Jennifer, awake now. She appeared in the doorway, backlit by the hallway light, looking like something from a dream. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. "Martinez called. We talked about the plea." She came in, perching on the edge of my desk. And? And she thinks I should take it. Says trials are brutal, uncertain, that 4 months of guaranteed jail time is better than risking an acquittal or minimal sentencing after months of testimony. What do you think? I think I'm tired. I think I want this to be over. I think I want to wake up one morning and not have the first thought in my head be about your sister trying to kill me. I looked up at her. But I also think 6 months isn't enough. 4 months with good behavior definitely isn't enough. She tried to murder me, Jennifer. She smiled while she did it, and she gets 4 months? Jennifer was quiet, processing. What would be enough? A year? 5 years? 10? Would any amount of time feel proportional to what she did? I don't know, because I'm not sure anything would feel like enough. She took something from us that we can't get back. The belief that family is safe, that dinner parties are benign, that people you've known for years won't try to kill you. Jennifer's voice was steady but sad. No prison sentence is going to restore that. No amount of time is going to make you forget what happened. So I should take the plea. I didn't say that. I'm saying that you need to decide what you actually want from this. Do you want punishment? Do you want her to suffer? Do you want public accountability? Do you want it to be over? Those are all valid wants, but they might require different choices. I turned back to my computer, looking at my lists. What do you want? You're her sister. This is your family too. I want her to pay for what she did. I want her to understand that actions have consequences. I want the rest of the family to see clearly and publicly that she was wrong and dangerous. Jennifer paused. But I also want my husband to not spend the next 6 months being traumatized by a trial. I want us to be able to move forward. I want to stop answering calls from relatives asking me to drop charges. So I guess I want the plea too. Even though it's lighter than she deserves? Even though, because deserve is subjective, but over is objective. The plea makes this over. The trial drags it out indefinitely. We sat in silence, the only sound the hum of my laptop and the occasional car passing outside. Somewhere in the house, the refrigerator kicked on. Normal sounds, domestic sounds, the sounds of a life that was waiting for us to reclaim it. I need to talk to my parents, I said finally. Before I decide anything, I need to tell them what happened. Actually tell them, not the abbreviated version I gave them the night of the arrest. Okay, do you want me there? Please. We called my parents at 8 in the morning, a reasonable hour on the West Coast, where they'd retired to a small town outside Portland. My mother answered on the second ring, her voice bright with the forced cheerfulness she used when she was worried but didn't want to show it. Marcus, we've been so worried. Your text said you were in the hospital but didn't say why. Are you okay? Jennifer put the phone on speaker, setting it on the kitchen table between us. Hi, Eleanor. Hi, Richard. We're both here. Jennifer, what happened? Is Marcus all right? I took a breath, trying to figure out where to start. I'm okay now, but I was in the hospital because Claire, Jennifer's sister, put peanut butter in my food. Deliberately. She knew about my allergy. She did it anyway, to prove I was faking. The silence from the other end was profound. Then my father's voice, careful and controlled. She knew about your allergy? Your severe, life-threatening allergy that you've had since childhood? Yes, Jennifer's told her many times. She saw me use my EpiPen once when we had cross-contamination at a restaurant. She knew. And she still, my mother's voice broke. She still poisoned you? She admitted it. while I was choking. She smiled and said she wanted to see if I was really allergic or just being dramatic. Oh my God, my mother was crying now. Oh my God, Marcus, you could have died. You could have. She couldn't finish the sentence. But I didn't. The EMTs got there in time. I had my EpiPen. I'm okay. Okay? My father's voice was hard now, angry. You're not okay. Someone tried to murder you. Your wife's sister tried to murder you. How is any of this okay? I mean, I'm alive, physically recovered. The rest, I trailed off, not sure how to articulate the emotional wreckage. Have they arrested her? My father demanded. Yes. She's been charged with assault with a deadly weapon and reckless endangerment. She's out on bail with an ankle monitor. She can't contact us. Good, good. He was pacing now. I could hear the floor creaking, the familiar sound of my father angry and trying to control it. What happens next? Trial? That's why we're calling. Her lawyer has offered a plea deal. 6 months in jail, 50,000 in restitution, public apology, if I agree to support leniency in sentencing. 6 months? My mother's voice was shrill. She tried to kill you and they want to give her 6 months? The alternative is going to trial, but that takes months, and there's no guarantee she gets more time. She might get less. The jury might even acquit her. Acquit her? With evidence? With witnesses? My father was incredulous. Her lawyer is very good. She'll argue Claire didn't understand the severity, didn't intend serious harm, that it was poor judgment, not criminal intent. Juries are unpredictable. More silence. Then my mother quietly, "What do you want to do, sweetheart?" I don't know. Part of me wants the guaranteed outcome. Part of me wants her to face a jury and hear every detail of what she did. Then do that, my father said immediately. Take her to trial. Make her face what she did. Make the family see. Make everyone understand that this wasn't a mistake or poor judgment. This was attempted murder. Richard, my mother started. No, Eleanor, our son nearly died. Nearly died because some privileged woman thought she knew better than decades of medical evidence. She doesn't get to plea out and serve a few months and move on with her life. But it's not about what she deserves, my mother argued. It's about what's best for Marcus. And if going to trial means months of stress and trauma, if it means reliving this over and over, is that worth it? Is revenge worth his mental health? It's not revenge, it's justice. Sometimes justice costs too much. They argued back and forth, my parents debating the merits of each choice while Jennifer and I sat silently listening. Finally, I interrupted. Stop, both of you, stop. This is my decision. Mine and Jennifer's. And I think I paused, feeling the words solidify into certainty as I spoke them. I think I'm going to take the plea. The words hung in the air. My father made a sound of protest, but I kept talking. Not because Claire deserves leniency, not because 6 months is proportional to what she did, but because Martinez is right. Healing matters more than revenge. And I can't heal while spending 6 months preparing for trial, testifying, being cross-examined about whether my allergy is real, whether I'm vindictive, whether I deserve this somehow. I looked at Jennifer. I want it to be over. I want to move forward. I want our life back. But she gets away with it, my father said, frustration evident. She doesn't get away with it. She goes to jail. She has a felony record. She loses her reputation. She has to publicly admit she tried to kill me. That's not nothing, Dad. That's more consequences than someone like Claire has ever faced. My mother spoke, her voice gentle. And the money, the 50,000? Helps. Medical bills from the ER were 20,000. Therapy, because I'm going to need therapy, will be expensive. The rest goes toward the future we're building, the life we're reclaiming from this. Okay. My father sounded defeated but resigned. If that's what you want, we support you. But I want you to know, if you change your mind, if you decide you want to fight this at trial, we're behind you. We'll fly out. We'll sit in that courtroom every single day. We'll make sure you're not alone. I know, Dad. Thank you. After we hung up, Jennifer and I sat at the kitchen table, the weight of the decision settling over us. It was done, not officially, not yet, but in my mind the choice had crystallized. You're sure? Jennifer asked. I'm sure. Call Martinez. Tell her I'll agree to the plea, but I want some modifications. What modifications? I'd been thinking about this while my parents argued. 6 months is non-negotiable. No reduction for good behavior. Claire serves the full sentence. The 50,000 goes up to 75. She can afford it, and I want it to hurt. The public apology is specific. She has to state exactly what she did and why it was wrong, not some vague "I made a mistake" statement. And the no contact order is permanent, not just 5 years. I never want to see her or hear from her again. Jennifer was already typing notes into her phone. That's good. That's really good. Martinez can negotiate from there. One more thing. I waited until she looked up. I want to write a victim impact statement, a real one, not supporting leniency, explaining exactly what she did to me, to us, to any sense of safety we had. I want that on the record. I want the judge to read it before sentencing. The plea deal asks you to support leniency. Then that part of the deal is off the table. She gets her guilty plea in her 6 months, but she doesn't get my blessing. She doesn't get me standing up in court saying she's learned her lesson or deserves compassion. She gets the truth. Jennifer smiled, fierce and proud. Okay, I'll call Martinez now. While she stepped into the other room to make the call, I opened my laptop again and started writing. Not a list this time, but a statement. The statement I'd give to the court, the words that would go on permanent record, that would follow Claire through sentencing and beyond. Your Honor, on the evening of November 22nd, Claire Whitmore tried to kill me. She did not do this in a moment of passion or rage. She did not do this accidentally. She did it deliberately, methodically, by adding peanut butter to food she knew I would eat, fully aware of my severe, life-threatening peanut allergy. She did this not because she hated me, but because she didn't believe me. She didn't believe that allergies were real, that my medical needs were valid, that my life mattered as much as her need to be right. I kept writing, the words flowing faster now. Everything I'd held back for days, the fear, the fury, the sense of betrayal poured onto the page. This was my testimony, my truth, my evidence that what happened mattered, that it couldn't be minimized or explained away. By the time Jennifer came back, I had 3 pages. Martinez is calling Patterson now. She thinks they'll accept most of your modifications. The money might be the sticking point. 75,000 is substantial, but the permanent no contact and the specific apology should be fine. Jennifer looked at my laptop screen. Is that the statement? First draft. Will you read it? Tell me if it's too much. She sat beside me, reading in silence. When she finished, there were tears on her cheeks. It's perfect. It's not too much. It's exactly right. Even the part about how this destroyed my relationship with your family. Especially that part. They need to understand the ripple effects. That she didn't just hurt you physically. She fractured everything around us. My phone buzzed. Martinez. Patterson tentatively agrees to 6 months firm, permanent no contact, specific apology, still negotiating money. We'll call in an hour. It's happening, I said, feeling something like relief mixed with resignation. It's actually happening. How do you feel? Tired, angry, that 6 months is what justice looks like, but also ready for it to be over. Ready to stop fighting and start healing. Jennifer took my hand, lacing her fingers through mine. Then we heal, together, starting now. We sat there in the morning light, holding hands across the kitchen table, while somewhere across town, lawyers negotiated the terms of my attempted murderer's punishment. It wasn't perfect justice. It wasn't proportional. It wasn't what Claire deserved, but it was what I needed. An ending, a line drawn, a chance to move forward instead of being trapped in endless litigation, endless trauma, endless replaying of the worst night of my life. Claire would go to jail. She would admit what she did. She would lose her freedom, her reputation, her place in the family, and I would take that settlement, imperfect as it was, and use it to build something better, something safer, something that didn't include people who thought of attempting murder was an acceptable way to win an argument. It wasn't the ending I would have written 6 months ago, but it was the ending I could live with now. And sometimes that's all justice can be, something you can live with. The courtroom was different this time, smaller, quieter, without the chaos of arraignment day. This was courtroom 2B, reserved for plea hearings and sentencing, painted in that same institutional beige that seemed to be the official color of consequence. Jennifer and I sat in the second row, early enough that the courtroom was still mostly empty except for a court officer arranging files and a stenographer testing her equipment. It had been 2 weeks since I'd agreed to the modified plea deal, 2 weeks of negotiations, paperwork, and increasingly desperate messages from Claire's side of the family. My inbox was a graveyard of subject lines. Please reconsider. Family healing. Second chances. What would Jesus do? That last one was from Jennifer's Aunt Linda, who hadn't been to church in 20 years, but apparently found religion when her niece needed legal clemency. I deleted them all without responding. The deal had been finalized yesterday. 6 months in county jail, no reduction for good behavior. $70,000 in restitution. Patterson had fought hard, but Martinez was harder. A public apology that would run in both the local newspaper and the online editions of 3 regional news outlets, with specific language that I'd approved, and a permanent no-contact order that would follow Claire for the rest of her life. You ready for this? Jennifer asked, her hand finding mine. She was wearing the charcoal suit again, armor for another battle. As ready as I'll ever be. The courtroom began to fill. Martinez arrived first, her briefcase bulging with effrontery, looking simultaneously exhausted and grimly satisfied. She nodded to us, a small acknowledgement, before taking her place at the prosecutor's table. Then came Diane Patterson, expensive heels clicking against the floor, followed by Claire. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, she was still tall, still carrying herself with that particular posture that finishing schools and country clubs drilled into their students. But diminished somehow, hollow. She wore a navy dress, conservative and appropriate, with minimal jewelry. The ankle monitor was visible beneath the hem, a thick black band that caught the fluorescent light. Her eyes found mine across the courtroom. I'd prepared myself for rage, for defiance, for the same fury I'd seen at her arraignment. But what I saw instead was something more complicated. Fear, maybe, or the dawning realization that this was actually happening. That in a few hours, she'd be trading her designer clothes for county-issued orange, her California king bed for a metal bunk, her freedom for a cell. Good. The thought was sharp and mean, and satisfying in a way that probably said something unflattering about me. But I didn't care. She'd tried to kill me. She'd smiled while she did it, and now she was going to pay. David entered last, looking even worse than he had at the arraignment. His suit hung on him like he'd lost weight, and his eyes were red-rimmed. He took a seat into the front row, not next to Claire. They were separated now, physically and legally. The divorce papers had been filed last week, according to a text from him that I'd left on read. She's destroyed everything, he'd written. I can't be married to someone capable of this. At least someone in Claire's life had developed a sense of self-preservation. All rise. Judge Hernandez entered, and we stood. She took the bench with the same efficient authority I remembered, scanning the courtroom with sharp eyes that cataloged everything. Please be seated. We're here for the plea hearing in the matter of the People versus Claire Whitmore, case number CR 2024-8847. She looked at Patterson. Counsel, is your client prepared to enter a plea? Patterson stood, smoothing her skirt. Yes, Your Honor. Miss Whitmore is prepared to plead guilty to 1 count of assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of reckless endangerment, pursuant to the plea agreement negotiated with the district attorney's office. Ms. Whitmore, please stand. Claire rose, Patterson beside her. From my angle, I could see Claire's hands trembling. She clasped them together, trying to hide it. Ms. Whitmore, you are charged with assault with a deadly weapon and reckless endangerment. Do you understand these charges? Yes. Your Honor. Claire's voice was barely audible. Please speak up. Yes, Your Honor. Louder now, but strained. Your attorney has negotiated a plea agreement. Have you reviewed this agreement with your attorney? Yes. Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are waiving your right to a trial? That you are admitting you committed these crimes? A long pause, then, yes. Do you understand that a conviction for assault with a deadly weapon is a felony and will remain on your record permanently? That it will affect your employment, your housing, your right to vote? Another pause. Longer this time. Claire swayed slightly and Patterson's hand went to her elbow, steadying her. Yes, Your Honor. Has anyone forced you or coerced you into pleading guilty? Are you entering this plea freely and voluntarily? Yes. Judge Hernandez made notes, then looked up. Very well. Ms. Whitmore, please state for the record, on November 22nd, 2024, did you deliberately add peanut butter to food served to Marcus Chen, knowing that he had a severe, life-threatening peanut allergy? The moment stretched. The courtroom was silent except for the hum of ventilation and the quiet clicking of the stenographer's keys. Claire opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Yes. Yes what? Yes, I added peanut butter to his food. I knew about his allergy. And did this action cause Mr. Chen to suffer anaphylactic shock, requiring emergency medical treatment? Yes. And do you acknowledge that your actions could have resulted in Mr. Chen's death? This pause was the longest yet. I could see Claire's attorney whispering something to her, urgent and low. Finally, yes, my actions could have killed him. Hearing her say it, actually admit it out loud in an official capacity, was more satisfying than I'd expected. No more equivocation, no more I just wanted to prove a point, or I didn't think it was that serious. Just the plain, ugly truth. Judge Hernandez nodded. The court accepts your guilty plea. We'll proceed to sentencing. Ms. Martinez, does the people have a sentencing recommendation? Martinez stood, pulling out her tablet. Yes, Your Honor. The people recommend 6 months in county jail with no reduction for good behavior, $70,000 in restitution to the victim, completion of a court-approved education program on food allergies and empathy retraining, and a permanent no-contact order with the victim and his family. Additionally, the defendant will issue a public apology with specific language approved by the victim. Ms. Patterson, does the defense have any objections to these terms? No, Your Honor. My client has agreed to all terms of the plea agreement. Very well. Before I impose sentence, I'd like to hear from the victim. Mr. Chen, do you wish to make a statement? This was it, the moment I'd been preparing for. I stood, my legs steadier than I'd expected, and walked to the lectern positioned between the two counsel tables. I'd printed my statement, 3 pages, single-spaced, every word weighed and chosen. But now, standing here with Claire 10 feet away, with Judge Hernandez looking at me with patient expectation, with Jennifer watching from the gallery, I realized I didn't need the printed pages. I lived this statement. It was written in my body, in my throat that still ached sometimes, in my nightmares, in every meal where I had to check and recheck ingredients. I set the papers down and looked directly at Claire. Your Honor, Claire Whitmore tried to kill me. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's the literal truth. She took a substance she knew would trigger a life-threatening reaction, peanut butter, and she deliberately added it to my food. She watched me eat it, and when I started choking, when my throat started to close, when I was struggling to breathe, she smiled. She actually smiled. Claire was crying now, silent tears running down her face. I felt nothing watching her cry. No satisfaction, no pity. Just a distant acknowledgement that tears were the appropriate response to consequences. She didn't do this out of hatred or rage. She did it because she didn't believe me, didn't believe that my allergy was real, that my medical needs were valid, that my lived experience mattered as much as her opinion. She decided that her certainty, based on nothing but arrogance, was more important than my life. I paused, taking a breath. My throat was tight, but not from allergies this time. From emotion, from the sheer weight of finally saying this to someone who had the power to do something about it. I want the court to understand what she took from me. Not just the night of November 22nd, though that was terrifying enough, but everything after. I can't eat at restaurants anymore without having panic attacks. I can't go to family gatherings, not that there are any with my wife's family anymore. I can't trust people who say they've accommodated my allergy. I can't sleep without nightmares. I can't walk past a bottle of peanut butter in the grocery store without my heart racing. Judge Hernandez was taking notes, her expression neutral but attentive. Claire destroyed my sense of safety. She destroyed my wife's relationship with your family. She took something that should have been benign, a family dinner, and turned it into attempted murder. And even now, even after the arrest and the evidence in the medical records, she still doesn't fully understand what she did. Or if she does, she doesn't care. I looked at Claire directly. She was still crying, but she met my eyes now. Was that remorse I saw, or just self-pity? I couldn't tell. And I realized I didn't care enough to try. 6 months is not enough time for what she did. 6 months is not proportional to the trauma she caused. But I'm accepting this plea not because she deserves leniency, but because I deserve peace. I deserve to move forward with my life instead of spending months in a trial, reliving the worst night of my life over and over. I turned back to Judge Hernandez. I'm asking the court to impose the full sentence as agreed. 6 months with no reduction, $70,000, the education program, the permanent no-contact order, and I'm asking that the public apology be published exactly as written, with no modifications or softening of language. Claire needs to state clearly and publicly what she did, so that everyone who knows her understands the danger she posed. I picked up my printed statement and handed it to the court officer to file. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you. I walked back to my seat beside Jennifer, my legs suddenly weak. She took my hand, squeezing hard, and I could feel her pride and her pain radiating through that touch. Judge Hernandez read through my statement, her expression darkening as she reached the end. Then she looked at Claire, who was still standing, still crying. Ms. Whitmore, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Patterson whispered something to Claire, who shook her head. Patterson tried again, more insistent, and finally Claire nodded. Your Honor, She stopped, swallowed, tried again. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I genuinely believed that Marcus was exaggerating his allergy. I've spent my whole life around people who claim sensitivities that aren't real, who use dietary restrictions to get attention. And I thought, she trailed off, finally understanding how that sounded. You thought what? Judge Hernandez's voice was sharp. That you knew better than his doctors? Better than decades of medical history? Better than his own body? I was wrong, Claire's voice broke. I was so wrong. I almost killed him. I destroyed my family. I destroyed my marriage. I destroyed everything. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? The question hung in the air. Claire opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Patterson for help that wasn't coming. I'm sorry I did it, she finally whispered. I'm sorry I didn't believe him. I'm sorry I was so arrogant. I'm sorry for everything. Judge Hernandez studied her for a long moment. Miss Whitmore, I've been on the bench for 22 years. I've seen a lot of defendants stand where you're standing. I've heard a lot of apologies, some genuine, some performative. Yours, I'm not entirely sure which category it falls into. Claire flinched as if struck. What I do know is this. You committed a serious crime. You deliberately poisoned someone, knowing it could kill them. The only reason you're not facing murder charges is because Mr. Chen survived, through quick action and access to emergency medical care. You gambled with his life and you lost. And now you are going to face consequences, perhaps the first real consequences you've ever faced. Judge Hernandez shuffled her papers, then pronounced sentence with the weight of absolute authority. Claire Whitmore, you are hereby sentenced to 6 months in county jail with no possibility of early release for good behavior. You will pay restitution to the victim in the amount of $70,000, due within 90 days of your release. You will complete a court-approved education program on food allergies and a psychological evaluation to assess your capacity for empathy. You are subject to a permanent no-contact order with Marcus Chen and Jennifer Chen, violation of which will result in additional criminal charges. And you will issue a public apology using the exact language approved by the victim to be published in the outlets specified in the plea agreement. The gavel came down, final, binding, done. Ms. Whitmore, you will be taken into custody immediately. Your sentence begins today. Two court officers approached. Claire looked back at David, but he wasn't looking at her. She looked toward the gallery, maybe hoping to see her parents, but they weren't there. They'd stayed away, unable or unwilling to watch their daughter go to jail. The officers put her in handcuffs, not the dramatic arrest kind from TV, but simple restraints that clicked into place with brutal efficiency. Claire made a small sound, something between a sob and a gasp, and then she was being led away, through the side door that led to the holding cells, to processing, to the reality of county jail. The last thing I saw before the door closed was her looking back at me one more time. And this time I saw something I hadn't seen before. Understanding, real, genuine understanding of what she'd done and what it had cost. It didn't change anything, didn't make me forgive her, didn't make 6 months feel like adequate justice. But it was something. The courtroom emptied quickly after that. Martinez stopped by our row offering her hand. Good statement, Chen. Clear, powerful, no exaggeration. The judge appreciated that. Thank you for everything. Just doing my job. The public apology will run tomorrow in the morning edition of the Gazette and online tonight. I'll email you the links. She paused. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice, the plea. Trials are ugly, and this way, you got everything you needed. After she left, Jennifer and I sat alone in the empty courtroom for a moment, neither of us quite ready to leave. It's really over, Jennifer said quietly. The legal part anyway. Yeah. How do you feel? I thought about it, taking inventory of my emotions. Tired, relieved, still angry, but less than before, like I can finally exhale. That's good. That's healthy. Jennifer stood, gathering her things. Let's go home. Let's start the healing part. We walked out of the courthouse into a November afternoon that was cold and bright and ordinary. Cars in the parking lot, people going about their business. The world continuing to turn, indifferent to our small drama of justice and consequence. My phone buzzed, a text from David. Thank you for not destroying her completely. 6 months is merciful, even if she doesn't know it yet. I didn't respond. Mercy had nothing to do with it. I'd chosen the plea for my own healing, not for Claire's sake. But if David needed to believe I'd been merciful, let him. Whatever helped him sleep at night. Another buzz. This time from my mother. Dad and I are proud of you. That statement was perfect. We love you. That one I answered. Love you too. See you at Thanksgiving. Because that was the other thing I decided. No more walking on eggshells around Jennifer's family. No more trying to bridge unbridgeable gaps. We'd host our own Thanksgiving this year. My parents, our friends, people who believed in things like medical science and not poisoning dinner guests. We'd create our own traditions, build our own family from people who chose us and chose safety. What are you thinking about? Jennifer asked as we reached our car. Thanksgiving, turkey, how we're going to roast it without burning it like last year. She laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in weeks. Marcus, last year you set off the smoke alarm 3 times. Then clearly we need a better strategy this year. We drove home through ordinary traffic, past ordinary houses, living ordinary lives. Except ours wasn't ordinary anymore. Couldn't be, after what we'd survived. But maybe that was okay. Maybe ordinary was overrated anyway. Claire would serve her 6 months, would lose her marriage, her reputation, her place in society, would learn or fail to learn whatever lesson 6 months in county jail taught. But that was her journey now, not mine. Mine was simpler. Heal, rebuild, live. And maybe eventually trust again that dinner parties were safe. That family meant protection, not danger. That the people you broke bread with wouldn't try to kill you. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but someday. The email from Martinez arrived at 6:47 a.m., before I'd even finished my first coffee. Subject line, public apology published. Links below. I stared at the notification on my phone screen, my finger hovering over it. Jennifer was still asleep. She'd been exhausted lately, the accumulated stress of the past 3 weeks finally catching up with her. I could wake her, We could read it together. Or I could read it alone first, process it privately before sharing it with her. I chose alone. The first link took me to the Riverside Gazette, our local paper. There, on page 3 of the online edition, positioned between an article about city council rezoning and an opinion piece about holiday traffic, was Claire's apology. The headline was simple, almost bureaucratic. Local woman issues apology for poisoning incident. But the text below, the text was exactly what I'd required. What I'd edited and re-edited until every word carried the weight of truth. My name is Claire Whitmore, and I am writing this apology as required by my plea agreement in case CR 2024-8847. On November 22, 2024, I deliberately added peanut butter to food I served to my brother-in-law, Marcus Chen, knowing that he has a severe, life-threatening peanut allergy. I did this because I did not believe his allergy was real. I thought he was exaggerating, seeking attention, or being unnecessarily difficult about food. I was catastrophically wrong. My actions caused Marcus to go into anaphylactic shock. His throat swelled closed. He could not breathe. He required emergency medical intervention, including epinephrine injections and hospitalization. He nearly died because of my arrogance and ignorance. When Marcus began choking, when he was clearly in distress, I did not immediately call for help. Instead, I smiled. I felt satisfied that I was proving he was faking. This satisfaction, this cruelty in the face of someone suffering, is something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. I want to be absolutely clear. Marcus was not faking. His allergy is real. It is documented by decades of medical records. It has been consistent since childhood. My disbelief was not based on any evidence. It was based solely on my own arrogance and my refusal to accept that I might be wrong. Food allergies are real. They are serious. They can be fatal. People with food allergies are not being difficult or seeking attention. They are trying to stay alive. By refusing to believe this, by deliberately exposing Marcus to an allergen, I committed assault with a deadly weapon. I have pleaded guilty to this crime. I have destroyed my relationship with my sister, Jennifer. I've destroyed Marcus's sense of safety. I have caused lasting trauma to someone who trusted me enough to eat food I had prepared. There is no adequate apology for these actions. I am writing this apology not because I expect forgiveness. I don't deserve forgiveness, but because other people need to understand the consequences of dismissing someone's medical needs. If you know someone with a food allergy, believe them. Take it seriously. Accommodate them without complaint. Do not test them. Do not try to prove they're faking. Do not do what I did. I am serving 6 months in county jail for my actions. This is less time than I deserve. Marcus Chen nearly died because of me. He will live with the trauma of what I did for the rest of his life. 6 months is inadequate justice, but it is what the legal system has determined. To Marcus, I am sorry. These words are insufficient, but they are all I have. I was wrong. You nearly died because I prioritized my ego over your life. I hope that someday you can find peace, even if you can never forgive me. To anyone reading this, learn from my mistake. Believe people about their bodies. Respect medical conditions. Understand that your skepticism, your need to be right, is never worth risking someone's life. Claire Whitmore. I read it 3 times. Each time I felt something different. The first read was satisfaction. She'd said it all, admitted everything, held nothing back. The second read was sadness for what had been lost, for the family fractures that would never fully heal. The third read was something like closure, a door finally swinging shut on this chapter of my life. My phone buzzed, a text from my friend Marcus. We'd met in college, bonded over sharing the same first name, stayed friends through Tarzan and moves and marriages. He'd been horrified when I'd told him what happened, had offered to fly out for the trial before I'd explained there wouldn't be one. Holy shit, man. Just saw the apology in the Gazette. That's intense. How are you holding up? I typed back, weird. Good weird, I think. She actually said it all. No softening, no excuses. You made her write it that way? Every word. My lawyer approved the language. Claire had to publish it exactly as written, or the plea deal was off. That's some justice right there. Not perfect, but something. Yeah, something. More texts started rolling in as people woke up and checked the news. Friends expressing support. Former colleagues I hadn't heard from in years. Even a message from my old allergist, Dr. Patterson, different Patterson, no relation to Claire's lawyer, who wrote, "Marcus, I just read the apology. I'm so sorry this happened to you, but I'm glad you're okay. I'm using this in my next presentation to parents about taking food allergies seriously. With your permission, of course, I gave permission. If Claire's crime could become a teaching tool, if it could make even one person take allergies more seriously, then maybe some good could come from this nightmare." Jennifer emerged from the bedroom at 8, her hair sleep-tangled, wearing one of my t-shirts. "You're up early." The apology published. Martinez sent the links. She was instantly awake. "Can I see?" I handed her my phone. She curled up beside me on the couch, reading in silence. When she finished, she was crying, quiet tears that she didn't bother wiping away. "She actually said it all," Jennifer whispered. "Everything. No weasel words, no minimizing. Just the truth. That's what I required." Martinez made sure the language was binding. "The part about me, about destroying our relationship." Jennifer's voice cracked. "That's true. She did destroy it. There's no coming back from this." I pulled her close, letting her cry against my shoulder. We'd avoided talking about this much. The permanent fracture in her family, the mother who still called, but conversations were strained and careful. The father who hadn't called at all. Jennifer's whole childhood, her history, her blood, all of it was now divided into before and after. Before Claire tried to kill me. After. "You don't regret it?" I asked quietly. "Choosing me over her? Over them?" "No," Jennifer sat up, wiping her eyes. "Never. You're my husband. You're my choice. You're my family now. And anyone who can't understand why I'd side with the attempted murder victim over the attempted murderer isn't someone I need in my life." My phone buzzed again. This time a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Marcus Chen?" "Yes." "This is Amanda Rodriguez. I was one of the EMTs who responded to your call that night." Her voice was warm, familiar, even though we had only met once. "I just wanted to call and tell you I read the apology. The whole crew did. We wanted you to know. We see a lot of bad things in this job, a lot of preventable tragedies, but we don't often see justice, real justice. Thank you for following through. Thank you for making sure this wasn't just swept under the rug." My throat tightened. "Thank you for saving my life. If you hadn't gotten there so fast, we were just doing our job. But you did something harder. You stood up for yourself. You documented everything, even while you were dying. That's remarkable. You should be proud." After she hung up, I sat holding the phone, feeling the weight of her words. Proud. Was I proud? I felt relieved, exhausted, still angry in the way that doesn't really go away, but becomes part of your baseline. But proud? Maybe. Maybe I was proud that I'd refused to let this be minimized, that I'd demanded full accountability, that I'd stood in that courtroom and said clearly and publicly that what Claire did was attempted murder, not a mistake. The doorbell rang. Jennifer and I looked at each other, neither of us expecting anyone. "I'll get it," she said, moving toward the front door. Through the window, I could see a delivery truck. A few moments later, Jennifer returned carrying an enormous floral arrangement, roses, lilies, orchids, the kind of expensive bouquet that probably cost several $100s. She opened the card and her expression went from curious to disgusted in half a second. "What?" I asked. She handed me the card. It was from Claire's mother, Helen. "Marcus and Jennifer, I read Claire's apology this morning. I'm heartbroken by what she did, by the pain she caused, by the destruction of our family. I know you cannot forgive her. I'm not asking you to, but I want you to know that I believe you. I believe Marcus's allergy is real and serious. I believe Claire did something unforgivable, and I am so sorry that my daughter, my child whom I raised, was capable of this. I don't expect a response. I don't expect reconciliation. But I needed you to know that I'm not choosing her over you. I'm simply trying to love both my daughters while understanding that one of them did something monstrous. These flowers are inadequate. Everything I could send or say is inadequate, but they're an offering, an acknowledgement, a small gesture toward what can never be repaired. Love, Mom. Jennifer sat down heavily, still holding the card. She signed it, Mom, not Helen, Mom. What do you want to do? I asked. Do you want to respond? I don't know. Part of me wants to throw the flowers in the trash and block her number. Part of me, she trailed off, staring at the elaborate arrangement. Part of me wants my mom back, wants to believe that she really does understand, that she's not just saying what she thinks I want to hear. Both things can be true. You can want your mom back and still maintain boundaries. You can accept the flowers and still not be ready for reconciliation. Jennifer nodded slowly. I'll text her, thank her for the flowers, tell her I need more time, that we both need more time. While she typed out her message, I scrolled through the comments on the online version of the apology. There were hundreds already, and they ran the full spectrum of human reaction. Some were supportive. Good for her for owning up to what she did. Hope she learns from this. As someone with severe food allergies, this hits hard. Thank you for taking it seriously, Mr. Chen. 6 months isn't enough, but at least she's going to jail. Others were predictably awful. This is ridiculous. People are so sensitive now. It was just peanut butter. He's obviously exaggerating for sympathy. Real allergies aren't that serious. Typical snowflake generation pressing charges over everything. I closed the comment section. There would always be people like that. People like Claire, convinced that medical conditions they hadn't personally experienced weren't real. People who would read this entire story and still think I was the problem. But there were other comments too. People sharing their own stories of dismissed allergies, of close calls, of family members who didn't believe them until they saw anaphylaxis firsthand. People thanking Claire for the apology, not because it absolved her, but because it validated their own experiences. One comment in particular stuck with me. I have a daughter with a severe peanut allergy. She's 6. Every day I send her to school terrified that someone will do what Ms. Whitmore did, deliberately test her, expose her, try to prove we're lying. I'm printing this apology and showing it to every parent, every teacher, every person who's ever suggested my daughter is faking. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for fighting for this. You might have just saved my daughter's life by making this public. I screenshotted that comment and sent it to Martinez. She replied immediately, this is why we did it. This is why it mattered. The day continued in a strange blur of messages and calls and reactions. The story picked up traction, not viral exactly, but enough that it spread beyond our local news. A food allergy advocacy group reached out asking if I'd be willing to speak at their annual conference. A podcast about true crime and justice wanted to interview me. A reporter from a national news outlet asked for a statement. I declined most of it. This wasn't a story I wanted to tell over and over. It was a trauma I wanted to process privately, heal from quietly. But I did agree to one thing, a short interview with the Food Allergy Advocacy Group's newsletter, on the condition that they focused on allergy awareness rather than the sensational details of attempted murder. The interview was simple, conducted over email. What do you want people to understand about food allergies? Aimee, that they're real, they're serious, and they can be fatal. People with food allergies aren't being difficult or seeking attention. They're trying to stay alive. If someone tells you they have a food allergy, believe them, accommodate them, never, ever test them. What would you say to someone who doubts food allergies are serious? I'd tell them to read the medical literature, to talk to allergists, to understand that anaphylaxis can kill in minutes. And I'd tell them about my cousin who died at age 7 from a peanut allergy, about the 5 minutes I spent unable to breathe, certain I was dying, about the medical bills and the trauma and the permanent psychological damage. And then I'd ask them, is your skepticism worth risking someone's life? Q, what do you hope comes from your case? I hope it makes even one person take allergies more seriously. I hope it makes people understand that deliberately exposing someone to an allergen isn't a prank or a test. It's assault. It's attempted murder. And I hope that anyone reading this who has a food allergy feels validated, believed, and protected. The interview published that afternoon, accompanied by the full text of Claire's apology. More messages rolled in, more people sharing stories, more awareness spreading in ripples outward from this terrible stone thrown into the water. By evening, Jennifer and I were exhausted from it all. We ordered dinner from a restaurant we trusted absolutely, one that had a separate prep area for allergens, and ate in comfortable silence. "Do you think she's reading all this?" Jennifer asked eventually. "In jail. Do you think she knows how big this has gotten?" "I don't know. Maybe. County jail has limited internet access, but she might hear about it from her lawyer." "Good." Jennifer's voice was firm. "Let her see it. Let her understand that this isn't just about us anymore. It's bigger. It matters to people beyond our little family drama." "Do you think she'll actually learn anything? 6 months from now, when she gets out, do you think she'll be different?" Jennifer considered this. "I don't know. I want to believe people can change, but I also know my sister. She spent 42 years believing she's smarter than everyone else, that her perspective is the only valid one. 6 months might humble her, or it might just make her bitter. Either way, she can't contact us. The no contact order is permanent." "Yeah," Jennifer smiled slightly. "That might be my favorite part of the whole plea deal. Knowing I'll never have to see her again unless I choose to, that she's excised from our lives like the poison she tried to feed you." We spent the rest of the evening deliberately not talking about Claire, about apologies, about justice. Instead, we planned Thanksgiving. My parents were flying in next week, and we'd invited Jennifer's best friend from law school and her husband, plus 2 couples from my work who'd been incredibly supportive through all of this. 8 people around our table. Not the massive family gatherings we'd grown accustomed to with Jennifer's family. No fighting over who got to host. No complicated seating charts to keep feuding relatives apart. No walking on eggshells around Claire's judgmental comments. Just 8 people who genuinely cared about each other, who wouldn't try to poison anyone, who understood that gratitude and safety were more important than tradition and obligation. "I think this will be a good Thanksgiving," Jennifer said as we cleaned up from dinner. "Smaller but better." "Better," I agreed. "Definitely better." That night, lying in bed, I pulled up the apology one more time, read it through again, savoring each admission, each acknowledgement. It wasn't perfect justice. 6 months would never be enough. But it was something. It was Claire, forced to tell the truth. Claire, stripped of her carefully constructed narrative. Claire, made to face what she'd done in clear, undeniable language that would follow her forever. Every future employer who Googled her name would find this apology. Every future friend, every potential romantic partner, every person who might invite her to dinner. They'd all see it. The permanent record of the night she tried to murder her brother-in-law because she didn't believe in allergies. That permanence, that inability to escape or rewrite history, was its own form of justice. Not the kind that came with prison bars and sentencing, though that was happening too, but the kind that lived in search results, in screenshots, in the long memory of the internet. Claire Whitmore, attempted murderer. Not because of rage or hatred or passion, but because of arrogance, because of willful ignorance, because she'd been so convinced she was right that someone else's life seemed like an acceptable wager. I set down my phone and closed my eyes, feeling something like peace settling over me for the first time in weeks. It wasn't closure. That would take months, maybe years. It wasn't forgiveness. That might never come. But it was acknowledgement, public, permanent, unchangeable acknowledgement. And sometimes that's the closest thing to justice you can get. The turkey was perfect this year. Golden brown, herb-crusted, no smoke or alarms triggered. Jennifer stood beside me in the kitchen, basting it one final time before we pulled it from the oven, and I caught her smiling, genuinely smiling, in a way I hadn't seen since before that dinner at Claire's. "We did it," she said, as if roasting a turkey was some monumental achievement. Maybe it was. Maybe after everything we'd survived, getting through a normal holiday tradition was worth celebrating. My parents arrived first, my mother immediately taking over the kitchen with the efficiency of someone who'd cooked 1,000 Thanksgiving dinners. My father pulled me aside, his hand on my shoulder, searching my face for signs of damage that might not be visible. "You look good, son. Better than I expected." I'm getting there. Therapy helps. So does time. And Claire, serving her sentence. 3 months down, 3 to go. I didn't mention that I'd stopped tracking her time, stopped thinking about her except when forced to. She'd taken up enough space in my head. The doorbell rang and suddenly our small house was full of people. Jennifer's friend Rachel and her husband Tom. Our friends the Kowalskis, their twin daughters who immediately charmed my mother. 8 people, just like we'd planned. 8 people we trusted completely. We gathered around the same table where I'd sat reading hate mail from Jennifer's relatives just weeks ago, and it looked different now. Warmer, safer. The empty chairs weren't absences. They were boundaries we'd chosen to set. Should we say grace, my mother asked, ever traditional. I have something better, Jennifer said. She stood, raising her wine glass. I want to toast to chosen family. To the people who show up, who believe us, who don't try to kill us at dinner parties. Uncomfortable laughter rippled around the table, but Jennifer wasn't finished. This year has been the hardest of my life. I lost my sister, not to death, but to her own choices. I learned that blood doesn't guarantee safety, that family can be dangerous, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Her voice caught, but she pushed through. But I also learned that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who stays, who fights for you, who sits at your table and makes you feel safe. She looked at each person gathered there, my parents, her friends, our chosen people. Then her eyes found mine. So thank you, all of you, for being here, for being safe, for being family. We raised our glasses, the crystal-catching candlelight, and drank to something more important than tradition, to survival, to healing, to the family we'd built from the ashes of the one that had tried to destroy us. The turkey was perfect. The conversation flowed easily. Nobody questioned my dietary restrictions or suggested I was being difficult. Nobody weaponized food or trust or love. It was just Thanksgiving. Simple, safe, exactly what it should be. And for the first time in months, I could breathe easy. Spring came with cherry blossoms and renewal, the world insisting on beauty despite everything. I stood in our backyard watching Jennifer plant tomatoes in the garden bed we'd built together. Therapy through manual labor, our counselor had suggested. It was working. My phone buzzed. A notification I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Claire Whitmore released from county jail today. 6 months. She'd served every day of her sentence. And now she was free. Free to rebuild her life. Though I knew from David's occasional texts that there wasn't much left to rebuild. Divorced, unemployed, her country club membership revoked, her social circle vanished like morning fog. She's out, I told Jennifer. She paused, trowel in hand. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty, maybe? Like I should feel something more, but I just don't. The permanent no-contact order meant Claire couldn't reach us directly. But her lawyer had sent one final message through Martinez. Claire wanted us to know she'd completed an intensive allergy education program in jail. She'd volunteered to speak to a food service workers training course about the seriousness of food allergies. She'd started therapy. None of it erased what she'd done. None of it brought back my sense of safety or Jennifer's relationship with her family. But maybe it meant someone else wouldn't become a victim of the same arrogant certainty that had nearly killed me. The advocacy group called again, I said. They want me to speak at their annual conference. Are you going to do it? I think so. Not to talk about Claire, but about survival, about believing people, about how accommodation isn't an inconvenience, it's love. Jennifer smiled, returning to her tomatoes. That's good. That's healing. I pulled out my EpiPen, I carried 2 now, always, and looked at it. This small cylinder of epinephrine, this emergency tool that had saved my life. It wasn't a symbol of weakness or difficulty or being picky. It was a symbol of survival. And maybe that's what this whole nightmare had taught me. Survival isn't just about staying alive in the moment. It's about choosing, every day, to keep living despite the trauma. To plant gardens and host dinners and trust again, carefully, with people who've earned it. Claire was free now, but so was I. Free from her toxicity, free from family obligation that demanded I shrink myself, free from the weight of her certainty. I pocketed the EpiPen and joined Jennifer in the garden, my hands in the soil, planting something that would grow.